the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Adi Parva, Section 1, Introductory, Om. Having bowed down to Narayana and Nara, the most exalted male being, and also to the goddess Saraswati, must the word Jaya be uttered. Ugrasrava, the son of Lomaharshana, surnamed Soti, well-versed in the Puranas, bending with humility, one day approached the great sages of rigid vows, sitting at their ease, who had attended the 12 years sacrifice of Soinka, surnamed Kulpati, in the forest of Namisha. Those ascetics, wishing to hear his wonderful narrations, presently began to address him who had thus arrived at that recluse abode of the inhabitants of the forest of Namisha. Having been entertained with due respect by those holy men, he saluted those munis, sages, with joined palms, even all of them, and inquired about the progress of their asceticism. Then all the ascetics being again seated, the son of Lomaharshana humbly occupied the seat that was assigned to him. Seeing that he was comfortably seated, and recovered from fatigue, one of the rishis beginning the conversation, asked him, "Whence comest thou, O lotus-eyed Soti, and where hast thou spent the time? Tell me, who asked thee, in detail?" Accomplished in speech, Soti, thus questioned, gave in the midst of that big assemblage of contemplative munis a full and proper answer in words consonant with their mode of life. Soti said, having heard the diverse sacred and wonderful stories which were composed in his Mahabharat by Krishna-Dwaipayana, and which were recited in full by Vasampayana at the snake sacrifice of the high-souled royal sage Janamejaya, and in the presence also of that chief of princes, the son of Parikshit, and having wandered about, visiting many sacred waters and holy shrines, I journeyed to the country venerated by the Dvijas, twice born, and called Samantapanchaka, where formerly was fought the battle between the children of Kuru and Pandu, and all the chiefs of the land ranged on either side. Thence, anxious to see you, I am come into your presence. Ye reverend sages, all of whom are to me as Brahma, ye greatly blessed who shine in this place of sacrifice with the splendor of the solar fire, ye who have concluded the silent meditations and have fed the holy fire, and yet who are sitting without care, what, O ye Dvijas, twice born, shall I repeat, shall I recount the sacred stories collected in the Puranas containing precepts of religious duty and of worldly profit, or the acts of illustrious saints and sovereigns of mankind? The Rishi replied, the Purana, first promulgated by the great Rishi Dwaipayana, and which after having been heard both by the gods and the Brahmarshis was highly esteemed, being the most eminent narrative that exists, diversified both in diction and division, possessing subtle meanings logically combined, and gleaned from the Vedas, is a sacred work. Composed in elegant language, it included the subjects of other books. It is elucidated by other Shastras, and comprehended the sense of the four Vedas. We are desirous of hearing that history also called Bharata, the holy composition of the wonderful Vyasa, which dispelled the fear of evil, just as it was cheerfully recited by the Rishi Vasampayana, under the direction of Dwaipayana himself, at the snake sacrifice of Raja Janamejaya. Soti then said, having bowed down to the primordial being Isna, to whom multitudes make offerings, and who is adored by the multitude, who is the true incorruptible one, Brahma, perceptible, imperceptible, eternal, who is both a non-existing and an existing non-existing being, who is the universe and also distinct from the existing and non-existing universe, who is the creator of high and low, the ancient, exalted, inexhaustible one, who is Vishnu, beneficent and the beneficence itself. Worthy of all preference, pure and immaculate, who is Hari, the ruler of the faculties, the guide of all things movable and immovable. I will declare the sacred thoughts of the illustrious sage Vyasa, of marvelous deeds and worshipped here by all. Some bards have already published this history, some are now teaching it, and others, in like manner, will hereafter promulgate it upon the earth. It is a great source of knowledge, established throughout the three regions of the world. It is possessed by the twice born both in detailed and compendious forms. It is the delight of the learned for being embellished with elegant expressions, conversations human and divine, and a variety of poetical measures. In this world, when it was destitute of brightness and light, and enveloped all around in total darkness, there came into being, as the primal cause of creation, a mighty egg, the one inexhaustible seed of all created beings. It is called Mahadevya, and was formed at the beginning of the Yuga, in which we are told, was the true light Brahma, the eternal one, the wonderful and inconceivable being present alike in all places, the invisible and subtle cause, whose nature partaketh of entity and non-entity. From this egg came out the Lord Pitamaha Brahma, the one only Prajapati, with Surguru and Sthanu. Then appeared the 21 Prajapatis, viz. Manu, Vasishtha and Parmshti, 10 Prachetas, Daksha, and the 7 sons of Daksha. Then appeared the man of inconceivable nature whom all the rishis know, and so the Visvedevas, the Adityas, the Vasis, and the twin Aswins, the Yakshas, the Sadhyas, the Pisachas, the Guhayakas, and the Pitris. After these were produced the wise and most holy Brahmarshis, and the numerous Ejrashis distinguished by every noble quality. So the water, the heavens, the earth, the air, the sky, the points of the heavens, the years, the seasons, the months, the fortnights, called pakshs, with day and night in due succession. And thus were produced all things which are known to mankind. And what is seen in the universe, whether animate or inanimate, of created things, will at the end of the world, and after the expiration of the Yuga, be again confounded. And, at the commencement of other Yugas, all things will be renovated, and, like the various fruits of the earth, succeed each other in the due order of their seasons, thus continueth perpetually to revolve in the world, without beginning and without end, this wheel which causeth the destruction of all things. The generation of Devas, in brief, was 33,333. The sons of Dev were Brihabhanu, Chakshus, Atma Vibhavasu, Savita, Richika, Aka, Banu, Aswaya, and Ravi. Of these Vivaswans of old, Mahya was the youngest whose son was Devavrata. The latter had for his son, Suvrata who, we learn, had 3 sons, Dasajyoti, Satajyoti, and Sapsarajyoti, each of them producing numerous offspring. The illustrious Dasajyoti had 10,000, Satajyoti 10 times that number, and Sapsarajyoti 10 times the number of Satajyoti's offspring. From these are descended the family of the Kurus, of the Yadus, and of Bharata, the family of Yayati and of Ikshvaku, also of all the Rajarshis. Numerous also were the generations produced, and very abundant were the creatures and their places of abode. The mystery which is threefold, the Vedas, Yoga, and Vijnana Dharma, Artha, and Kama, also various books upon the subject of Dharma, Artha, and Kama, also rules for the conduct of mankind, also histories and discourses with various Shrutis. all of which having been seen by the Rishi Vyasa are here in due order mentioned as a specimen of the book. The Rishi Vyasa published this mass of knowledge in both a detailed and an abridged form. It is the wish of the learned in the world to possess the details and the abridgment. Some read the Bharata beginning with the initial mantra, invocation, others with the story of Astika, others with Uparikra, while some Brahmanas study the whole. Men of learning display their various knowledge of the institutes in commenting on the composition. Some are skillful in explaining it, while others, in remembering its contents. The son of Satyavati having, by penance and meditation, analyzed the eternal Veda, afterwards composed this holy history. When that learned Brahmarshi of strict vows, the noble Dwaipayana Vyasa, offspring of Parasra, had finished this greatest of narrations, he began to consider how he might teach it to his disciples. And the possessor of the 6 attributes, Brahma, the world's preceptor, knowing of the anxiety of the Rishi Dwaipayana, came in person to the place where the latter was, for gratifying the saint, and benefiting the people. And when Vyasa, surrounded by all the tribes of Munis, saw him, he was surprised, and, standing with joined palms, he bowed and ordered a seat to be brought. And Vyasa having gone round him who is called Hiranyagarbha seated on that distinguished seat stood near it, and being commanded by Brahma Paramsthi, he sat down near the seat, full of affection and smiling in joy. Then the greatly glorious Vyasa, addressing Brahma Paramsthi, said, O divine Brahma, by me a poem hath been composed which is greatly respected. The mystery of the Veda, and what other subjects have been explained by me, the various rituals of the Upanishads with the Angas, the compilation of the Puranas and history formed by me and named after the 3 divisions of time, past, present, and future, the determination of the nature of decay, fear, disease, existence, and non-existence, a description of creeds and of the various modes of life, rule for the 4 castes, and the import of all the Puranas, an account of asceticism and of the duties of a religious student, the dimensions of the sun and moon, the planets, constellations, and stars, together with the duration of the 4 ages, the Rig, Sama and Yajur Vedas, also the Adhyatma, the sciences called Nyaya, orthopy and treatment of diseases, charity and Pasupatadharma, birth celestial and human, for particular purposes, also a description of places of pilgrimage and other holy places of rivers, mountains, forests, the ocean, of heavenly cities and the kalpas, the art of war, the different kinds of nations and languages, the nature of the manners of the people, and the all-pervading spirit, all these have been represented. But, after all, no writer of this work is to be found on earth. Brahma said, One esteem thee for thy knowledge of divine mysteries, before the whole body of celebrated Munis distinguished for the sanctity of their lives. I know thou hast revealed the divine word, even from its first utterance, in the language of truth. Thou hast called thy present work a poem, wherefore it shall be a poem. There shall be no poets whose works may equal the descriptions of this poem, even as the 3 other modes called asrama are ever unequal in merit to the domestic asrama. Let Ganesha be thought of, O Muni, for the purpose of writing the poem. Soti said, Brahma having thus spoken to Vyasa, retired to his own abode. Then Vyasa began to call to mind Ganesha. And Ganesha, obviator of obstacles, ready to fulfill the desires of his votaries, was no sooner thought of, than he repaired to the place where Vyasa was seated. And when he had been saluted, and was seated, Vyasa addressed him thus, O guide of the Ganas, I be thou the writer of the Bharata which I have formed in my imagination, and which I am about to repeat. Ganesa, upon hearing this address, thus answered, I will become the writer of thy work, provided my pen do not for a moment cease writing. And Vyasa said unto that divinity, wherever there by anything thou dost not comprehend, cease to continue writing. Ganesa having signified his assent, by repeating the word proceeded to write, and Vyasa began, and by way of diversion, he knit the knots of composition exceeding close, by doing which, he dictated this work according to his engagement. I am, continued Soti, acquainted with 8,800 verses, and so is Sukha, and perhaps Sanfaya. From the mysteriousness of their meaning, O Muni, no one is able, to this day, to penetrate those closely knit difficult slokas. Even the omniscient Ganesa took a moment to consider, while Vyasa, however, continued to compose other verses in great abundance. The wisdom of this work, like unto an instrument of applying collyrium, hath opened the eyes of the inquisitive world blinded by the darkness of ignorance. As the sun dispelled the darkness, so doth the Bharata by its discourses on religion, profit, pleasure and final release, dispel the ignorance of men. As the full moon by its mild light expandeth the buds of the water lily, so this Purana, by exposing the light of the Shruti hath expanded the human intellect. By the lamp of history, which destroyeth the darkness of ignorance, the whole mansion of nature is properly and completely illuminated. This work is a tree, of which the chapter of contents is the seed, the divisions called Poiloma and Astika are the root, the part called Sambhava is the trunk, the books called Sabha and Aranya are the roosting perches, the books called Arani is the knitting knots, the books called Virata and Udyoga the pith, the book named Bhishma, the main branch, the book called Drona, the leaves, the book called Kama, the fair flowers, the book named Selya, their sweet smell, the books entitled Stri and Ashika, the refreshing shade, the book called Santi, the mighty fruit, the book called Aswamedha, the immortal sap, the denominated Asramavasika, the spot where it groweth, and the book called Moisla, is an epitome of the Vedas and held in great respect by the virtuous Brahmanas. The tree of the Bharata, inexhaustible to mankind as the clouds, shall be as a source of livelihood to all distinguished poets. Soti continued, I will now speak of the undying flowery and fruitful productions of this tree, possessed of pure and pleasant taste, and not to be destroyed even by the immortals. Formerly, the spirited and virtuous Krishna-Dwaipayana, by the injunctions of Bhishma, the wise son of Ganga and of his own mother, became the father of 3 boys who were like the 3 fires by the 2 wives of Vichitravirya, and having thus raised up Dhritarashtra, Pandu and Vidura, he returned to his recluse abode to prosecute his religious exercise. It was not till after these were born, grown up, and departed on the supreme journey, that the great Rishi Vyasa published the Bharata in this region of mankind, when being solicited by Janamejaya and thousands of Brahmanas, he instructed his disciple Vasampayana, who was seated near him, and he, sitting together with the Satsyas, recited the Bharata, during the intervals of the ceremonies of the sacrifice, being repeatedly urged to proceed. Vyasa hath fully represented the greatness of the house of Yuru, the virtuous principles of Gandhari, the wisdom of Vidura, and the constancy of Kunti. The noble Rishi hath also described the divinity of Vasudeva, the rectitude of the sons of Pandu, and the evil practices of the sons and partisans of Dhritarashtra. Vyasa executed the compilation of the Bharata, exclusive of the episodes originally in 24,000 verses, and so much only is called by the learned as the Bharata. Afterwards, he composed an epitome in 150 verses, consisting of the introduction with the chapter of contents. This he first taught to his son Sukha, and afterwards he gave it to others of his disciples who were possessed of the same qualifications. After that he executed another compilation, consisting of 600,000 verses. Of those, 30,000 are known in the world of the Devas, 1,500,000 in the world of the Pitris, 1,400,000 among the Gandharvas, and 100,000 in the regions of mankind. Narada recited them to the Devas, Devala to the Pitris, and Sukha published them to the Gandharvas, Yakshas, and Rakshasas, and in this world they were recited by Vasampayana, one of the disciples of Vyasa, a man of just principles and the first among all those acquainted with the Vedas. Know that I, Soti, have also repeated 100,000 verses. Yudhishthira is a vast tree, formed of religion and virtue, Arjuna is its trunk, Bhimsena, its branches, the two sons of Madri are its full-grown fruit and flowers, and its roots are Krishna, Brahma, and the Brahmanas. Pandu, after having subdued many countries by his wisdom and prowess, took up his abode with the Munis in a certain forest as a sportsman, where he brought upon himself a very severe misfortune for having killed a stag coupling with its mate, which served as a warning for the conduct of the princes of his house as long as they lived. Their mothers, in order that the ordinances of the law might be fulfilled, admitted as substitutes to their embraces the gods Dharma, Vayu, Sakra, and the divinities the twin Aswins. And when their offspring grew up, under the care of their two mothers, in the society of ascetics, in the midst of sacred groves and holy recluse abodes of religious men, they were conducted by rishis into the presence of Dhritarashtra and his sons, following as students in the habit of brahmacharis, having their hair tied in knots on their heads. These are pupils, said they, are as your sons, your brothers, and your friends, they are Pandavas. Saying this, the Munis disappeared. When the Kauravas saw them introduced as the sons of Pandu, the distinguished class of citizens shouted exceedingly for joy. Some, however, said, they were not the sons of Pandu, others said, they were, while a few asked how they could be his offspring, seeing he had been so long dead. Still on all sides voices were heard crying, they are on all accounts welcome. Through divine providence we behold the family of Pandu. Let their welcome be proclaimed. As these acclamations ceased, the plaudits of invisible spirits, causing every point of the heavens to resound, were tremendous. There were showers of sweet-scented flowers, and the sound of shells and kettle drums. Such were the wonders that happened on the arrival of the young princess. The joyful noise of all the citizens, in expression of their satisfaction on the occasion, was so great that it reached the very heavens in magnifying plaudits. Having studied the whole of the Vedas and sundry other Shastras, the Pandavas resided there, respected by all and without apprehension from any one. The principal men were pleased with the purity of Yudhishthira, the courage of Arjuna, the submissive attention of Kunti to her superiors, and the humility of the twins, Nakula and Sahdeva, and all the people rejoiced in their heroic virtues. After a while, Arjuna obtained the Virgin Krishna at the Swayamvara, in the midst of a concourse of Rajas, by performing a very difficult feat of archery. And from this time he became very much respected in this world among all bowmen, and in fields of battle also, like the sun, he was hard to behold by foemen, and having vanquished all the neighboring princes and every considerable tribe, he accomplished all that was necessary for the Raja, his eldest brother, to perform the great sacrifice called Rajasuya. Yudhishthira, after having, through the wise counsels of Vasudeva and by the valor of Bhimsena and Arjuna, slain Jasandha, the king of Magad, and the proud Chaitya, acquired the right to perform the grand sacrifice of Rajasuya, abounding in provisions and offerings and fraught with transcendent merits. And Duryodhan came to this sacrifice, and when he beheld the vast wealth of the Pandavas scattered all around, the offerings, the precious stones, gold and jewels, the wealth in cows, elephants, and horses, the curious textures, garments, and mantles, the precious shawls and furs and carpets made of the skin of the ranku, he was filled with envy and became exceedingly displeased. And when he beheld the hall of assembly elegantly constructed by Maya, the Asura architect, after the fashion of a celestial court, he was inflamed with rage. And having started in confusion at certain architectural deceptions within this building, he was derided by Bhimsena in the presence of Vasudeva, like one of mean descent. And it was represented to Dhritarashtra that his son, while partaking of various objects of enjoyment and divers precious things, was becoming meagre, wan, and pale. And Dhritarashtra, some time after, out of affection for his son, gave his consent to their playing, with the Pandavas, at dice. And Vasudeva, coming to know of this, became exceedingly wroth. And being dissatisfied, he did nothing to prevent the disputes, but overlooked the gaming and sundry other horrid unjustifiable transactions arising therefrom, and in spite of Vidura, Bhishma, Drona, and Kripa, the son of Sadhavan, he made the Kshatriyas kill each other in the terrific war that ensued. And Dhritarashtra, hearing the ill news of the success of the Pandavas and recollecting the resolutions of Duryodhan, Kama, and Sakuni, pondered for a while and addressed to Sanjay the following speech: "Attend, O Sanjay, to all I am about to say, and it will not become thee to treat me with contempt. Thou art well versed in the Shastras, intelligent, and endowed with wisdom. My inclination was never to war, nor did I delight in the destruction of my race. I made no distinction between my own children and the children of Pandu. My own sons were prone to willfulness and despised me because I am old. Blind as I am, because of my miserable plight, and through paternal affection, I bore it all. I was foolish after the thoughtless Duryodhan, ever growing in folly. Having been a spectator of the riches of the mighty sons of Pandu, my son was derided for his awkwardness while ascending the hall. Unable to bear it all and unable himself to overcome the sons of Pandu in the field, and though a soldier, unwilling yet to obtain good fortune by his own exertion, with the help of the king of Gandhara he concerted an unfair game at dice. Hear, O Sanjay, all that happened thereupon and came to my knowledge. And when thou hast heard all I say, recollecting everything as it fell out, thou shalt then know me for one with a prophetic eye. When I heard that Arjuna, having bent the bow, had pierced the curious mark and brought it down to the ground, and bore away in triumph the maiden Krishna, in the sight of the assembled princes, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Subhadra of the race of Madhu had, after forcible seizure, been married by Arjuna in the city of Dwarka, and that the two heroes of the race of Vrishni, Krishna and Balram, the brothers of Subhadra, without resenting it had entered Indraprastha as friends, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, by his celestial arrow preventing the downpour by Indra the king of the gods, had gratified Agni by making over to him the forest of Kandava, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the 5 Pandavas with their mother Kunti had escaped from the house of Lag, and that Vidura was engaged in the accomplishment of their designs, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, after having pierced the mark in the arena, had won Draupadi, and that the brave Panchalas had joined the Pandavas, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Jasanta, the foremost of the royal line of Magad, and blazing in the midst of the Kshatriyas, had been slain by Bhima with his bare arms alone, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that in their general campaign the sons of Pandu had conquered the chiefs of the land and performed the grand sacrifice of the Rajasuya, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Draupadi, her voice choked with tears and heart full of agony, in the season of impurity and with but one raiment on, had been dragged into court, and though she had protectors, she had been treated as if she had none, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the wicked wretch Daksasana was striving to strip her of that single garment, had only drawn from her person a large heap of cloth without being able to arrive at its end, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Yudhishthira, beaten by Saubala at the game of dice and deprived of his kingdom as a consequence thereof, had still been attended upon by his brothers of incomparable prowess, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the virtuous Pandavas weeping with affliction had followed their elder brother to the wilderness and exerted themselves variously for the mitigation of his discomforts, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Yudhishthira had been followed into the wilderness by Snedkas and noble-minded Brahmanas who live upon alms, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, having, in combat, pleased the god of gods, Triambaka, the three-eyed, in the disguise of a hunter, obtained the great weapon Pasupata, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the just and renowned Arjuna, after having been to the celestial regions, had there obtained celestial weapons from Indra himself, then, Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that afterwards Arjuna had vanquished the Kalakeyas and the Poilomas proud with the boon they had obtained and which had rendered them invulnerable even to the celestials, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, the chastiser of enemies, having gone to the regions of Indra for the destruction of the Asuras, had returned thence successful, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When one heard that Bhima and the other sons of Pritha, Kunti, accompanied by wise Ravana, had arrived at that country which is inaccessible to man, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that my sons, guided by the counsels of Kama, while on their journey of Goshaitara, had been taken prisoners by the Gandhavs and were set free by Arjuna, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Dharma, the god of justice, having come under the form of a yaksh, had proposed certain questions to Yudhishthira, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that my sons had failed to discover the Pandavas under their disguise while residing with Draupadi in the dominions of Virata, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the principal men of my side had all been vanquished by the noble Arjuna with a single chariot while residing in the dominions of Virata, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Vasudeva of the race of Madhu, who covered this whole earth by 1/4, was heartily interested in the welfare of the Pandavas, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the king of Matsya had offered his virtuous daughter Uttara to Arjuna and that Arjuna had accepted her for his son, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Yudhishthira, beaten at dice, deprived of wealth, exiled and separated from his connections, had assembled yet an army of 7 Akshohinis, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard Narada declare that Krishna and Arjuna were Nara and Narayana and he, Narada, had seen them together in the regions of Brahma, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Krishna, anxious to bring about peace, for the welfare of mankind, had repaired to the Kurus, and went away without having been able to effect his purpose, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Kama and Duryodhan resolved upon imprisoning Krishna displayed in himself the whole universe, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that at the time of his departure, Pritha, Kunti, standing, full of sorrow, near his chariot received consolation from Krishna, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Visudev and Bhishma the son of Santanu were the counselors of the Pandavas and Drona the son of Bharadwaja pronounced blessings on them, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When Kama said unto Bhishma, I will not fight when thou art fighting, and, quitting the army, went away, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Vasudeva and Arjuna and the bow Gandiva of immeasurable prowess, these 3 of dreadful energy, had come together, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that upon Arjuna having been seized with compunction on his chariot and ready to sink, Krishna showed him all the worlds within his body, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Bhishma, the desolator of foes, killing 10,000 charioteers every day in the field of battle, had not slain any amongst the Pandavas, note, then O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Bhishma, the righteous son of Ganga, had himself indicated the means of his defeat in the field of battle and that the same were accomplished by the Pandavas with joyfulness, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna, having placed Siknading before himself in his chariot, had wounded Bhishma of infinite courage and invincible in battle, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the aged hero Bhishma, having reduced the numbers of the race or Tashomaka to a few, overcome with various wounds, was lying on a bed of arrows, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that upon Bhishma's lying on the ground with thirst for water, Arjuna, being requested, had pierced the ground and allayed his thirst, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When Bev together with Indra and Surya united as allies for the success of the sons of Kunti, and the beasts of prey, by their inauspicious presence, were putting us in fear, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When the wonderful warrior Drona, displaying various modes of fight in the field, did not slay any of the superior Pandavas, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the Mahatha Sansaptakas of our army appointed for the overthrow of Arjuna were all slain by Arjuna himself, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that our disposition of forces, impenetrable by others, and defended by Bharadwaja himself well armed, had been singly forced and entered by the brave son of Subhadra, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that our Maharathas, unable to overcome Arjuna, with jubilant faces after having jointly surrounded and slain the boy Abhimanyu, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the blind Kauravas were shouting for joy after having slain Abhimanyu and that thereupon Arjuna in anger made his celebrated speech referring to Sindhava, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Arjuna had vowed the death of Sindhava and fulfilled his vow in the presence of his enemies, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that upon the horses of Arjuna being fatigued, Vasudeva releasing them made them drink water and bringing them back and reharnessing them continued to guide them as before, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that while his horses were fatigued, Arjuna staying in his chariot checked all his assailants, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Yuyudhna of the race of Vrishni, after having thrown into confusion the army of Drona rendered unbearable in prowess owing to the presence of elephants, retired to where Krishna and Arjuna were, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Kama, even though he had got Bhima within his power, allowed him to escape after only addressing him in contemptuous terms and dragging him with the end of his bow, then, Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Drona, Kritavarma, Kripa, Kama, the son of Drona, and the valiant king of Madra, Selya, suffered Sindhava to be slain, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the celestial Sakti given by Indra to Kama was by Madhava's machinations caused to be hurled upon Rakshasa Ghatotkacha of frightful countenance, then, O Sanjay, one had no hope of success. When I heard that in the encounter between Kama and Ghatotkacha, that C.I.E was hurled against Ghatotkacha by Kama, the same which was certainly to have slain Arjuna in battle, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Drishtadayumna, transgressing the laws of battle, slew Drona while alone in his chariot and resolved on death, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Nakula, the son of Madri, having in the presence of the whole army engaged in single combat with the son of Drona and showing himself equal to him drove his chariot in circles around, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success when upon the death of Drona, his son misused the weapon called Narayana but failed to achieve the destruction of the Pandavas, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Bhimsena drank the blood of his brother Dussasana in the field of battle without anybody being able to prevent him, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the infinitely brave Kama, invincible in battle, was slain by Arjuna in that war of brothers mysterious even to the gods, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Yudhishthira the just overcome the heroic son of Drona, Dussasana, and the fierce Kritavarman, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the brave king of Madra who ever dared Krishna in battle was slain by Yudhishthira, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the wicked Suvala of magic power, the root of the gaming and the feud, was slain in battle by Sahdeva, the son of Pandu, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Duryodhan, spent with fatigue, having gone to a lake and made a refuge for himself within its waters, was lying there alone, his strength gone and without a chariot, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the Pandavas having gone to that lake accompanied by Vasudeva and standing on its beach began to address contemptuously my son who was incapable of putting up with affronts, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that while displaying in circles a variety of curious modes of attack and defense, in an encounter with clubs, he was unfairly slain according to the counsels of Krishna, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard the son of Drona and others by slaying the Panchalas and the sons of Draupadi in their sleep, perpetrated a horrible and infamous deed, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that Aswatthama while being pursued by Bhimsena had discharged the first of weapons called Ashika, by which the embryo in the womb of Uttara was wounded, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that the weapon Bralimashira, discharged by Aswatthama, was repelled by Arjuna with another weapon over which he had pronounced the word Sasti, and that Aswatthama had to give up the jewel-like excrescence on his head, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. When I heard that upon the embryo in the womb of Virata's daughter being wounded by Aswatthama with a mighty weapon, Dwaipayana and Krishna pronounced curses on him, then, O Sanjay, I had no hope of success. Alas! Gandhari, destitute of children, grandchildren, parents, brothers, and kindred, is to be pitied. Difficult is the task that hath been performed by the Pandavas, by them hath a kingdom been recovered without a rival. Alas! I have heard that the war hath left only 10 alive, 3 of our side, and the Pandavas, 7, in that dreadful conflict 18 Akshahinis of Kshatriyas have been slain. All around me is utter darkness, and a fit of swoon assaileth me, consciousness leaves me, O Sutha, and my mind is distracted. Soti said, Dhritarashtra, bewailing his fate in these words, was overcome with extreme anguish and for a time deprived of sense, but being revived, he addressed Sanjay in the following words. After what hath come to pass, O Sanjay, I wish to put an end to my life without delay. I do not find the least advantage in cherishing it any longer. Soti said, the wise son of Gavlagan, Sanjay, then addressed the distressed lord of earth while thus talking and bewailing, sighing like a serpent and repeatedly fainting, in these words of deep import. Thou hast heard, O Raja, of the greatly powerful men of vast exertions, spoken of by Vyasa and the wise Narada, men born of great royal families, resplendent with worthy qualities, versed in the science of celestial arms, and in glory emblems of India, men who having conquered the world by justice and performed sacrifices with fit offerings, to the Brahmanas, obtained renown in this world and at last succumbed to the sway of time. Such were C.I.E, the valiant Mahatha, Srinjaya, great amongst conquerors, Suhotra, Rantideva, and Kakshivanta, great in glory, Valhika, Damna, Saryati, Ajita, and Nala, Viswamitra the destroyer of foes, Ambarish, great in strength, Maruta, Manu, Ikshaku, Gaya, and Bharata, Rama the son of Dasratha, Saswindu, and Bhagiratha, Kritavirya, the greatly fortunate, and Janamejaya too, and Yayati of good deeds who performed sacrifices, being assisted therein by the celestials themselves, and by whose sacrificial altars and stakes this earth with her habited and uninhabited regions hath been marked all over. These 24 Rajas were formerly spoken of by the celestial Rishi Narada unto C.I.E when much afflicted for the loss of his children. Besides these, other Rajas had gone before, still more powerful than they, mighty charioteers noble in mind, and resplendent with every worthy quality. These were Puru, Kuru, Yadu, Sura and Viswagas of great glory, Anuha, Yuvanas, Kakutstha, Vikrami, and Raghu, Vijaya, Vitihota, Anga, Bhav, Sweta, and Vripaguru, Yushinara, Sataratha, Kanka, Duladuha, and Druma, Dambodhava, Para, Vena, Sagra, Sankriti, and Nemi, Ajay, Parsu, Pundra, Sambhu, and holy Devavridha, Devauya, Supratika, and Vrihadratha, Mahatsaha, Vinitatma, Sukratu, and Nala, the king of the Nishdas, Satyavrat, Santhabhya, Sumitra, and the chief Subala, Janujanga, Anaranya, Aka, Priyabritya, Chuchivratha, Balbandhu, Nirmada, Ketusringa, and Brahidbala, Drishtaketu, Brihatketu, Dripteketu, and Niramaya, Abhikshit, Chapla, Dorta, Kritbandhu, and Drideshuddhi, Mahapurana Sambhavya, Pratyanga, Paraha and Shruti. These, O chief, and other Rajas, we hear enumerated by hundreds and by thousands, and still others by millions, princes of great power and wisdom, quitting very abundant enjoyments met death as thy sons have done. Their heavenly deeds, valor, and generosity, their magnanimity, faith, truth, purity, simplicity and mercy, are published to the world in the records of former times by sacred bards of great learning. Though endued with every noble virtue, these have yielded up their lives. Thy sons were malevolent, inflamed with passion, avaricious, and of very evil disposition. Thou art versed in the sastras, O Bharata, and art intelligent and wise. They never sink under misfortunes whose understandings are guided by the sastras. Thou art acquainted, O Prince, with the lenity and severity of fate. This anxiety therefore for the safety of thy children is unbecoming. Moreover, it behoveth thee not to grieve for that which must happen, for who can avert, by his wisdom, the decrees of fate? No one can leave the way marked out for him by providence. Existence and non-existence, pleasure and pain all have time for their root. Time createth all things and time destroyeth all creatures. It is time that burneth creatures and it is time that extinguisheth the fire. All states, the good and the evil, in the three worlds, are caused by time. Time cutteth short all things and createth them anew. Time alone is awake when all things are asleep. Indeed, time is incapable of being overcome. Time passeth over all things without being retarded. Knowing, as thou dost, that all things past and future and all that exist at the present moment, are the offspring of time, it behoveth thee not to throw away thy reason. Soti said, the son of Gavlagan having in this manner administered comfort to the royal Dhritarashtra overwhelmed with grief for his sons, then restored his mind to peace. Taking these facts for his subject, Dwaipayana composed a holy Upanishad that has been published to the world by learned and sacred bards in the Puranas composed by them. The study of the Bharata is an act of piety. He that readeth Ave in 1/4, with belief, hath his sins entirely purged away. Herein Devas, Devarshis, and immaculate Brahmarshis of good deeds, have been spoken of, and likewise Yakshas and great Urgas, Nagas. Herein also hath been described the eternal Vasudev possessing the 6 attributes. He is the true and just, the pure and holy, the eternal Brahma, the supreme soul, the true constant light, whose divine deeds wise and learned recount, from whom hath proceeded the non-existent and existent non-existent universe with principles of generation and progression, and birth, death and rebirth. That also hath been treated of which is called Adhyatma, the superintending spirit of nature, that partaketh of the attributes of the five elements. That also hath been described who is Purusliya being above such epithets as undisplayed, and the like, also that which the foremost yatis exempt from the common destiny and endued with the power of meditation and tapas behold dwelling in their hearts as a reflected image in the mirror. The man of faith, devoted to piety, and constant in the exercise of virtue, on reading this section is freed from sin. The believer that constantly heareth recited this section of the Bharata, called the introduction, from the beginning, falleth not into difficulties. The man repeating any part of the introduction in the two twilights is during such act freed from the sins contracted during the day or the night. This section, the body of the Bharata, is truth and nectar. As butter is incurred, Brahmana among bipeds, the Aranyaka among the Vedas, and nectar among medicines, as the sea is eminent among receptacles of water, and the cow among quadrupeds, as are these, among the things mentioned, so is the Bharata said to be among histories. He that causeth it, even a single foot thereof, to be recited to Brahmanas during a Shraddha, his offerings of food and drink to the manes of his ancestors become inexhaustible. By the aid of history and the Puranas, the Veda may be expounded, but the Veda is afraid of one of little information lest he should it. The learned man who recites to other this Veda of Vyasa reapeth advantage. It may without doubt destroy even the sin of killing the embryo and the like. He that readeth this holy chapter of the moon, readeth the whole of the Bharata, I ween. The man who with reverence daily listeneth to this sacred work acquireth long life and renown and ascendeth to heaven. In former days, having placed the four Vedas on one side and the Bharata on the other, these were weighed in the balance by the celestials assembled for that purpose. And as the latter weighed heavier than the four Vedas with their mysteries, from that period it hath been called in the world Mahabharat, the great Bharata. Being esteemed superior both in substance and gravity of import, it is denominated Mahabharat on account of such substance and gravity of import. He that knoweth its meaning is saved from all his sins. Tapa is innocent, study is harmless. The ordinance of the Vedas prescribed for all the tribes are harmless. The acquisition of wealth by exertion is harmless. But when they are abused in their practices, it is then that they become sources of evil. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa, Adi-Parva, Section 2, Sangraha Parva, the Rishis said, O son O Sutha, we wish to hear a full and circumstantial account of the place mentioned by you as Samantha Panchaka. Soti said, Listen, O ye Brahmanas, to the sacred descriptions I utter. O ye best of men, ye deserve to hear of the place known as Samantha Panchaka. In the interval between the Treta and Dwapara Yugas, Rama, the son of Jamdagni, great among all who have borne arms, urged by impatience of wrongs, repeatedly smote the noble race of Kshatriyas. And when that fiery meteor, by his own valor, annihilated the entire tribe of the Kshatriyas, he formed at Samantapanchaka 5 lakes of blood. We are told that his reason being overpowered by anger, he offered oblations of blood to the manes of his ancestors, standing in the midst of the sanguine waters of those lakes. It was then that his forefathers, of whom Richika was the first, having arrived there, addressed him thus, O Rama, O blessed Rama, O offspring of Bhrigu, we have been gratified with the reverence thou hast shown for thy ancestors and with thy valor, O mighty one. Blessings be upon thee. O thou illustrious one, ask the boon that thou mayst desire. Rama said, If, O fathers, ye are favorably disposed towards me, the boon I ask is that I may be absolved from the sins born of my having annihilated the Kshatriyas in anger, and that the lakes I have formed may become famous in the world as holy shrines. The Pitris then said, So shall it be. But be thou pacified. And Rama was pacified accordingly. The region that lieth near unto those lakes of gory water, from that time hath been celebrated as Samanthapanchaka the holy. The wise have declared that every country should be distinguished by a name significant of some circumstance which may have rendered it famous. In the interval between the Dwapara and the Kali Yugas there happened at Samanthapanchaka the encounter between the armies of the Kauravas and the Pandavas. In that holy region, without ruggedness of any kind, were assembled 18 Akshohinis of soldiers eager for battle. And, O Brahmanas, having come thereto, they were all slain on the spot. Thus the name of that region, O Brahmanas, hath been explained, and the country described to you as a sacred and delightful one. I have mentioned the whole of what relateth to it as the region is celebrated throughout the three worlds. The rishis said, We have a desire to know, O son of Sutha, what is implied by the term Akshohini that hath been used by thee. Tell us in full what is the number of horse and foot, chariots and elephants, which compose an Akshohini, for thou art fully informed. Soti said, 1 chariot, 1 elephant, 5 foot soldiers, and 3 horses form 1 patti. 3 pattis make 1 senamukha, 3 senamukhas are called a gulma, 3 gulmas, a gun, 3 ganas, a vahini. 3 vahinis together are called a pritana, 3 pritanas form a chamu, 3 chamas, 1 anekini, and an anekini taken 10 times forms, as it is styled by those who know, an akshohini. O ye best of Brahmanas, arithmeticians have calculated that the number of chariots in an akshohini is 21,870. The measure of elephants must be fixed at the same number. O ye pure, you must know that the number of foot soldiers is 109,350. The number of horse is 65,610. These, O Brahmanas, as fully explained by me, are the numbers of an akshohini as said by those acquainted with the principles of numbers. O best of Brahmanas, according to this calculation were composed the 18 akshohinis of the Kaurava and the Pandava army. Time, whose acts are wonderful, assembled them on that spot, and having made the Kauravas the cause, destroyed them all. Bhishma, acquainted with choice of weapons, fought for 10 days. Drona protected the Kaurava Vahinis for 5 days. Karna, the desolator of hostile armies, fought for 2 days, and Salya for half a day. After that lasted for half a day the encounter with clubs between Duryodhan and Bhima. At the close of that day, Aswatthama and Kripa destroyed the army of Yudhishthira in the night while sleeping without suspicion of danger. O Soinka, this best of narrations called Bharata, which has begun to be repeated at thy sacrifice, was formerly repeated at the sacrifice of Janamejaya by an intelligent disciple of Vyasa. It is divided into several sections. In the beginning are Poesia, Poeloma, and Astika Parv as describing in full the valor and renown of kings. It is a work whose description, diction, and sense are varied and wonderful. It contains an account of various manners and rites. It is accepted by the wise, as the state called Vairagya is by men desirous of final release. As self among things to be known, as life among things that are dear, So is this history that furnisheth the means of arriving at the knowledge of Brahma, the first among all the sastras. There is not a story current in this world but doth depend upon this history, even as the body upon the food that it taketh. As masters of good lineage are ever attended upon by servants desirous of preferment, so is the Bharata cherished by all poets. As the words constituting the several branches of knowledge appertaining to the world and the Veda display only vowels and consonants, so this excellent history displayeth only the highest wisdom. Listen, O ascetics, to the outlines of the several divisions, Parvas, of this history called Bharata, endued with great wisdom, of sections and feet that are wonderful and various, of subtle meanings and logical connections, and embellished with the substance of the Vedas. The first Parva is called Anukramanika, the second, Sangraha, then Poesya, then Poiloma, then Astika, then Adivnasavatrana. Then comes the Sambhava of wonderful and thrilling incidents. Then comes Jatugrihadha, setting fire to the house of Lag, and then Hidimbabadha, the killing of Hidimba, Parvas, then comes Bakabadha, slaughter of Baka, and then Chitraratha. The next is called Swayambara, selection of husband by Panchali, in which Arjuna by the exercise of Kshatriya virtues, won Draupadi for wife. Then comes Vavaiki, marriage. Then comes Vidugamna, advent of Vidura, Bajif Labha, acquirement of kingdom, Arjuna Banvasa, exile of Arjuna, and Subhadrahana, the carrying away of Subhadra. After these come Harnaharika, Kandavadaha, the burning of the Kandava forest, and Mayadasana, meeting with Maya the Asura architect. Then comes Sabha, Mantra, Jasandha, Digvijaya, general campaign. After Digvijaya come Rajasyuaka, Aragya Vihrana, the robbing of the Argya, and Sisyupalabadha, the killing of Sisyupala. After these, Dyuta, gambling, Anudyuta, subsequent to gambling, Aranyaka, and Krimirabadha, destruction of Krimira. Then Arjuna Vigmana, the travels of Arjuna, Karati. In the last hath been described the battle between Arjuna and Mahadev in the guise of a hunter. After this Indraloka Vigmana, the journey to the regions of Indra, then that mine of religion and virtue, the highly pathetic Nalopakyana, the story of Nala. After this last, Tirthaitara, or the pilgrimage of the wise prince of the Kurus, the death of Jatasura, and the battle of the Yakshas. Then the battle with the Nivata Kavachas, Ajgara, and Markande Samasya, meeting with Markande. Then the meeting of Draupadi and Satyabhama, Goshaitara, Mrigaswapna, dream of the deer. Then the story of Brihadaranyaka and then Indradramna. Then Draupadi Hana, the abduction of Draupadi, Jayadratha by Moksana, the release of Jayadratha. Then the story of Savitri, illustrating the great merit of connubial chastity. After this last, the story of Rama. The Parva that comes next is called Kundalahana, the theft of the earrings. That which comes next is Aranya, and then Virata. Then the entry of the Pandavas and the fulfillment of their promise of living unknown for 1 year. Then the destruction of the Kichkas one, then the attempt to take the kin of Virata by the Kauravas. The next is called the marriage of Abhimanyu with the daughter of Virata. The next you must know is the most wonderful Parva called Udyoga. The next must be known by the name of Sanjayana, the arrival of Sanjay. Then comes Prajgara, the sleeplessness of Dhritarashtra owing to his anxiety. Then Sanat Sujata, in which are the mysteries of spiritual philosophy. Then Yansadhi, and then the arrival of Krishna. Then the story of Matali, and then of Galava. Then the stories of Savitri, Vamdeva, and Vanya. Then the story of Jamdagnya and Shoresrajika. Then the arrival of Krishna at the court, and then Bidulaputra's Sana. Then the muster of troops and the story of Sheta. Then, must you know, comes the quarrel of the high-souled Kama. Then the march to the field of the troops of both sides. The next hath been called numbering the Rathis and Atirathas. Then comes the arrival of the messenger Uluka which kindled the wrath of the Pandavas. The next that comes, you must know, is the story of Amba. Then comes the thrilling story of the installation of Bhishma as commander-in-chief. The next is called the creation of the insular region Jambu, then Bhumi, then the account about the formation of islands. Then comes the Bhagavad Gita, and then the death of Bhishma. Then the installation of Drona, then the destruction of the Sansaptakas. Then the death of Abhimanyu, and then the vow of Arjuna, to slay Jayadratha. Then the death of Jayadratha, and then of Ghatotkacha. Then, must you know, comes the story of the death of Drona of surprising interest. The next that comes is called the discharge of the weapon called Narayana. Then, you know, is Kama, and then Selya. Then comes the immersion in the lake, and then the encounter between Bhima and Duryodhan with clubs. Then comes Saraswata, and then the descriptions of holy shrines, and then genealogies. Then comes Soptika describing incidents disgraceful to the honor of the Kurus. Then comes the Isika of harrowing incidents. Then comes Jalapradna, oblations of water to the manes of the deceased, and then the wailings of the women. The next must be known as Shraddha, describing the funeral rites performed for the slain Kauravas. Then comes the destruction of the Rakshasa Chavaka who had assumed the disguise of a Brahmana, for deceiving Yudhishthira. Then the coronation of the wise Yudhishthira. The next is called the Griha Pravibhaga. Then comes Santi, then Rajadamanusana, then Apadharma, then Mokshadharma. Those that follow are called respectively Sukha Prasnavigamna, Brahma Prasnanusna, the origin of Durvasa, the disputations with Maya. The next is to be known as Anussanika. Then the ascension of Bhishma to heaven. Then the horse sacrifice, which when read purgeth all sins away. The next must be known as the Anugita, in which are words of spiritual philosophy. Those that follow are called Asramvasa, Patradashana, meeting with the spirits of the deceased sons, and the arrival of Narada. The next is called Moisla, which abounds with terrible and cruel incidents. Then comes Mahaprasthanika, an ascension to heaven. Then comes the Purana which is called Kilvansa. In this last are contained Vishnu Parva, Vishnu's frolics and feats as a child, the destruction of Kansa, and lastly, the very wonderful Bhavishyaparva, in which there are prophecies regarding the future. The high-souled Vyasa composed these 100 Parvas, of which the above is only an abridgment, having distributed them into 18. The son of Sutha recited them consecutively in the forest of Namisha as follows. In the Adiparva are contained Poeshiye, Poiloma, Astika, Adi Vansavatra, Samvan, the burning of the house of Lak, the slaying of Hidimba, the destruction of the Asuravaka, Chitraratha, the Swayamvara of Draupadi, her marriage after the overthrow of rivals in war, the arrival of Vidura, the restoration, Arjuna's exile, the abduction of Subhadra, the gift and receipt of the marriage dower, the burning of the Kandava forest, and the meeting with the Asura architect, Maya. The Poeshaparva treats of the greatness of Utanka, and the Poiloma, of the sons of Brigu. The Astika describes the birth of Garuda and of the Nagas, snakes, the churning of the ocean, the incidents relating to the birth of the celestial steed Uchchatsava, and finally, the dynasty of Bharata, as described in the snake sacrifice of King Janamejaya. The Sambhava Parva narrates the birth of various kings and heroes, and that of the sage, Krishna-Dwaipayana, the partial incarnations of deities, the generation of Danavas and Yakshas of great prowess, and serpents, Gandharvas, birds, and of all creatures, and lastly, of the life and adventures of King Bharata, the progenitor of the line that goes by his name, the son born of Sakuntala in the hermitage of the ascetic Kanva. This Parva also describes the greatness of Bhagirathi, and the births of the Vasis in the house of Santanu and their ascension to heaven. In this Parva is also narrated the birth of Bhishma uniting in himself portions of the energies of the other Vasis, his renunciation of royalty and adoption of the Brahmacharya mode of life, his adherence to his vows, his protection of Chitrangada, and after the death of Chitrangada, his protection of his younger brother, Vichitravirya, and his placing the latter on the throne, the birth of Dharma among men in consequence of the curse of Animondavya, the births of Dhritarashtra and Pandu, through the potency of Vyasa's blessings, and also the birth of the Pandavas, the plottings of Duryodhana to send the sons of Pandu to Varnavata, and the other dark counsels of the sons of Dhritarashtra in regard to the Pandavas, then the advice administered to Yudhishthira on his way by that well-wisher of the Pandavas Vidura in the Mlecha language, the digging of the hole, the burning of Purochna and the sleeping woman of the fouler caste, with her 5 sons, in the house of Lak. The meeting of the Pandavas in the dreadful forest with Hidimba, and the slaying of her brother Hidimba by Bhima of great prowess. The birth of Ghatotkacha, the meeting of the Pandavas with Vyasa and in accordance with his advice their stay in disguise in the house of a Brahmana in the city of Ekachakra, the destruction of the Asuravaka, and the amazement of the populace at the sight, the extraordinary births of Krishna and Drishtadayumna, the departure of the Pandavas for Panchala in obedience to the injunction of Vyasa, and moved equally by the desire of winning the hand of Draupadi on learning the tidings of the Swayamvara from the lips of a Brahmana, victory of Arjuna over a Gandharva, called Angaparna, on the banks of the Bhagirathi, his contraction of friendship with his adversary, and his hearing from the Gandharva the history of Tapti, Vasishtha and Orva. This Parva treats of the journey of the Pandavas towards Panchala, the acquisition of Draupadi in the midst of all the Rajas, by Arjuna, after having successfully pierced the mark, and in the ensuing fight, the defeat of Salya, Kama, and all the other crowned heads at the hands of Bhima and Arjuna of great prowess, the ascertainment by Balram and Krishna, at the sight of these matchless exploits, that the heroes were the Pandavas, and the arrival of the brothers at the house of the potter, where the Pandavas were staying, the dejection of Drupda on learning that Draupadi was to be wedded to 5 husbands, the wonderful story of the 5 Indras related in consequence, the extraordinary and divinely ordained wedding of Draupadi, the sending of Vidura by the sons of Dhritarashtra as envoy to the Pandavas, the arrival of Vidura and his sight of Krishna, the abode of the Pandavas in Kandava-prastha, and then their rule over 1/2 of the kingdom, the fixing of turns by the sons of Pandu, in obedience to the injunction of Narada, for connubial companionship with Krishna. In like manner hath the history of Sanda and Upasunda been recited in this. This Parva then treats of the departure of Arjuna for the forest according to the vow, he having seen Draupadi and Yudhishthira sitting together as he entered the chamber to take out arms for delivering the kin of a certain Brahmana. This Parva then describes Arjuna's meeting on the way with Ulupi, the daughter of a Naga, serpent. It then relates his visits to several sacred spots, the birth of Vabhrivayana, the deliverance by Arjuna of the 50 celestial damsels who had been turned into alligators by the imprecation of a Brahmana, the meeting of Madhava and Arjuna on the holy spot called Prabhasa, the carrying away of Subhadra by Arjuna, incited thereto by her brother Krishna, in the wonderful car moving on land and water, and through mid-air, according to the wish of the rider, the departure for Indraprastha, with the dover, the conception in the womb of Subhadra of that prodigy of prowess, Abhimanyu, Yajnasne's giving birth to children, then follows the pleasure trip of Krishna and Arjuna to the banks of the Jamuna and the acquisition by them of the discus and the celebrated Bogandiva, the burning of the forest of Kandava, the rescue of Maya by Arjuna, and the escape of the serpent, and the begetting of a son by that best of rishis, Mandapla, in the womb of the bird Sangi. This Parva is divided by Vyasa into 227 chapters. These 227 chapters contain 8,884 slokas. The second is the extensive Parva called Sabha or the assembly, full of matter. The subjects of this Parva are the establishment of the grand hall by the Pandavas, their review of their retainers, the description of the Lokpalas by now thou well acquainted with the celestial regions, i.e. the preparations for the Rajasuya sacrifice, the destruction of Jasandha, the deliverance by Vasudeva of the princes confined in the mountain pass, the campaign of universal conquest by the Pandavas, the arrival of the princes at the Rajasuya sacrifice with tribute, the destruction of Sisupala on the occasion of the sacrifice, in connection with offering of Arghya, Bhimsena's ridicule of Duryodhan in the assembly, Duryodhan's sorrow and envy at the sight of the magnificent scale on which the arrangements had been made, the indignation of Duryodhan in consequence, and the preparations for the game of dice, the defeat of Yudhishthira at play by the wily Sakuni, the deliverance by Dhritarashtra of his afflicted daughter-in-law Draupadi plunged in the sea of distress caused by the gambling, as of a boat tossed about by the tempestuous waves. The endeavors of Duryodhan to engage Yudhishthira again in the game, and the exile of the defeated Yudhishthira with his brothers. These constitute what has been called by the great Vyasa the Sabha Parva. This Parva is divided into 78 sections, or best of Brahmanas, of 2,507 slokas. Then comes the third Parva called Aranyaka, relating to the forest. This Parva treats of the vending of the Pandav as to the forest and the citizens, following the wise Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira's adoration of the god of day, according to the injunctions of Dharmya, to be gifted with the power of maintain the dependent Brahmanas with food and drink, the creation of food through the grace of the sun, the expulsion by Dhritarashtra of Vidura who always spoke for his master's good, Vidura's coming to the Pandavas and his return to Dhritarashtra at the solicitation of the latter, the wicked Duryodhan's plottings to destroy the forest-ranging Pandavas, being incited thereto by Kama, the appearance of Vyasa and his dissuasion of Duryodhan bent on going to the forest, the history of Surbhi, the arrival of Maitreya, his laying down to Dhritarashtra the course of action, and his curse on Duryodhan, Bhima's slaying of Kimera in battle, the coming of the Panchalas and the princes of the Vrishni race to Yudhishthira on hearing of his defeat at the unfair gambling by Sakuni, Dhananjaya's allaying the wrath of Krishna, Draupadi's lamentations before Madhava, Krishna's cheering her, The fall of Shiva also has been here described by the Rishi. Also Krishna's bringing Subhadra with her son to Dwarka, and Drishtadayumna's bringing the son of Draupadi to Panchala, the entrance of the sons of Pandu into the romantic Dwaita wood, conversation of Bhima, Yudhishthira, and Draupadi, the coming of Vyasa to the Pandavas and his endowing Yudhishthira with the power of Pratisamriti, then, after the departure of Vyasa, the removal of the Pandavas to the forest of Kamyak, the wanderings of Arjuna of immeasurable prowess in search of weapons, his battle with Mahadev in the guise of a hunter, his meeting with the Lokpalas and receipt of weapons from them, his journey to the regions of Indra for arms and the consequent anxiety of Dhritarashtra, the wailings and lamentations of Yudhishthira on the occasion of his meeting with the worshipful great sage Brihadasva. Here occurs the holy and highly pathetic story of Nala illustrating the patience of Damayanti and the charioteer of Nala. Then the acquirement by Yudhishthira of the mysteries of dice from the same great sage. Then the arrival of the Rishi Lomisa from the heavens to where the Pandavas were, and the receipt by these high-souled dwellers in the woods of the intelligence brought by the Rishi of their brother Arjuna staying in the heavens. Then the pilgrimage of the Pandav as to various sacred spots in accordance with the message of Arjuna, and their attainment of great merit and virtue consequent on such pilgrimage. Then the pilgrimage of the great sage Narada to the shrine Putasta, also the pilgrimage of the high-souled Pandavas. Here is the deprivation of Kama of his earrings by Indra. Here also is recited the sacrificial magnificence of Gaya. Then the story of Agastya in which the Rishi ate up the Asura Vatapi, and his connubial connection with Ld Amudra from the desire of offspring. Then the story of Rishyasringa who adopted Brahmacharya mode of life from his very boyhood. Then the history of Rama of great prowess, the son of Jamdagni, in which has been narrated the death of Kartavirya and the Hyayas. Then the meeting between the Pandavas and the Vrishnis in the sacred spot called Prabhasa. Then the story of Sukanya in which Chavna, the son of Brigu, made the twins, Aswinis, drink, at the sacrifice of King Sayati, the Soma Jews, from which they had been excluded by the other gods, and in which besides is shown how Chavna himself acquired perpetual youth, as a boon from the grateful Aswinis. Then hath been described the history of King Mandata, then the history of Prince Jantu, and how King Somaka by offering up his only son, Jantu, in sacrifice obtained 100 others, then the excellent history of the hawk and the pigeon, then the examination of King Sivi by Indra, Agni, and Dharm, then the story of Ashtavkara, in which occurs the disputation, at the sacrifice of Janka, between that Rishi and the first of logicians, Vandi, the son of Varuna, the defeat of Vandi by the great Ashtavkara, and the release by the Rishi of his father from the depths of the ocean. Then the story of Yavkrita, and then that of the great Ravya, then the departure of the Pandavas for Gandhamdana and their abode in the asylum called Narayana, then Bhimsena's journey to Gandhamdana at the request of Draupadi, in search of the sweet-scented flower, Bhima's meeting on his way, in a grove of bananas, with Hanuman, the son of Pavna of great prowess, Bhima's bath in the tank and the destruction of the flowers therein for obtaining the sweet-scented flower, he was in search of, his consequent battle with the mighty Rakshasas and the Yakshas of great prowess including Maniman, the destruction of the Asura Jata by Bhima, the meeting of the Pandavas with the royal sage, Vrishpava, their departure for the asylum of Ashatishena and abode therein, the incitement of Bhima to acts of vengeance by Draupadi. Then is narrated the ascent on the hills of Kailas by Bhimsena, his terrific battle with the mighty Yakshas headed by Maniman, then the meeting of the Pandavas with wise Ravana, Kuvara, and the meeting with Arjuna after he had obtained for the purpose of Yudhishthira many celestial weapons, then Arjuna's terrible encounter with the Nivatkavachas dwelling in Hiranyapurva, and also with the Poilomas, and the Kalakeyas, their destruction at the hands of Arjuna, the commencement of the display of the celestial weapons by Arjuna before Yudhishthira, the prevention of the same by Narada, the descent of the Pandavas from Gandhamdana, the seizure of Bhima in the forest by a mighty serpent huge as the mountain, his release from the coils of the snake, upon Yudhishthira's answering certain questions, the return of the Pandavas to the Kamyak woods. Here is described the reappearance of Vasudeva to see the mighty sons of Pandu, the arrival of Markandeya, and various recitals, the history of Prithu the son of Vena recited by the great Rishi, the stories of Saraswati and the Rishi Takya. After these, is the story of Matsya, other old stories recited by Markandeya, the stories of Indradyumna and Gangumara, then the history of the chaste wife, the history of Angira, the meeting and conversation of Draupadi and Satyabhama, the return of the Pandavas to the forest of Dwata, then the procession to see the calves and the captivity of Duryodhan, and when the wretch was being carried off, his rescue by Arjuna. Here is Yudhishthira's dream of the deer, then the re-entry of the Pandavas into the Kamyak forest. Here also is the long story of Vrihidraunika. Here also is recited the story of Durvasa, then the abduction by Jayadratha of Draupadi from the asylum, the pursuit of the Ravisha by Bhima swift as the air, and the ill-shaving of Jayadratha's crown at Bhima's hand. Here is the long history of Rama in which is shown how Rama by his prowess slew Ravana in battle. Here also is narrated the story of Savitri, then Kama's deprivation by Indra of his earrings, then the presentation to Kama by the gratified Indra of a Sakti, missile weapon, which had the virtue of killing only one person against whom it might be hurled, then the story called Aranya in which Dharma, the god of justice, gave advice to his son, Yudhishthira, in which, besides is recited how the Pandavas after having obtained a boon went towards the west. These are all included in the third Parva called Aranyaka, consisting of 269 sections. The number of slokas is 11,664. The extensive Parva that comes next is called Virata. The Pandavas arriving at the dominions of Virata saw in a cemetery on the outskirts of the city a large shami tree whereon they kept their weapons. Here hath been recited their entry into the city and their stay there in disguise. Then the slaying by Bhima of the wicked Kichka who, senseless with lust, had sought Draupadi, the appointment by Prince Duryodhan of clever spies, and their dispatch to all sides for tracing the Pandavas, the failure of these to discover the mighty sons of Pandu, the first seizure of Virata's kin by the Trigatas and the terrific battle that ensued, the capture of Virata by the enemy and his rescue by Bhimsena, the release also of the kin by the Pandava, Bhima, the seizure of Virata's kin again by the Kurus, the defeat in battle of all the Kurus by the single-handed Arjuna, the release of the king's kin, the bestowal by Virata of his daughter Uttara for Arjuna's acceptance on behalf of his son by Subhadra Abhimanyu the destroyer of foes. These are the contents of the extensive fourth Parva the Virata. The great Rishi Vyasa has composed in these 67 sections. The number of slokas is 2050. Listen then to the contents of the fifth Parva which must be known as Udyoga. While the Pandavas, desirous of victory, were residing in the place called Upaplavya, Duryodhan and Arjuna both went at the same time to Vasudeva, and said, "You should render us assistance in this war." The high-souled Krishna, upon these words being uttered, replied, "O ye first of men, a counselor in myself who will not fight and one Akshohini of troops, which of these shall I give to which of you?" Blind to his own interests, the foolish Duryodhan asked for the troops, while Arjuna solicited Krishna as an unfighting counselor. Then is described how, when the king of Madra was coming for the assistance of the Pandavas, Duryodhan, having deceived him on the way by presents and hospitality, induced him to grant a boon and then solicited his assistance in battle. How Salya, having passed his word to Duryodhan, went to the Pandavas and consoled them by reciting the history of Indra's victory over Vritra. Then comes the dispatch by the Pandavas of their Purohita, priest, to the Kauravas. Then is described how King Dhritarashtra of great prowess, having heard the word of the Purohita of the Pandavas and the story of Indra's victory, decided upon sending his Purohita and ultimately dispatched Sanjay as envoy to the Pandavas from desire for peace. Here hath been described the sleeplessness of Dhritarashtra from anxiety upon hearing all about the Pandavas and their friends, Vasudeva and others. It was on this occasion that Vidura addressed to the wise king Dhritarashtra various counsels that were full of wisdom. It was here also that Sanat Sujata recited to the anxious and sorrowing monarch the excellent truths of spiritual philosophy. On the next morning Sanjay spoke, in the court of the king, of the identity of Vasudeva and Arjuna. It was then that the illustrious Krishna, moved by kindness and a desire for peace, went himself to the Kaurava capital, Hastinapura, for bringing about peace. Then comes the rejection by Prince Duryodhan of the embassy of Krishna, who had come to solicit peace for the benefit of both parties. Here hath been recited the story of Dambodhava, then the story of the high-souled Matuli's search for a husband for his daughter, then the history of the great sage Kalava, then the story of the training and discipline of the son of Bidula. Then the exhibition by Krishna, before the assembled Rajas, of his yoga powers upon learning the evil counsels of Duryodhan and Kama. Then Krishna's taking Kama in his chariot and his tendering to him of advice, and Kama's rejection of the same from pride. Then the return of Krishna, the chastiser of enemies, from Hastinapura to Upaplavya, and his narration to the Pandavas of all that had happened. It was then that those oppressors of foes, the Pandavas, having heard all and consulted properly with each other, made every preparation for war. Then comes the march from Hastinapura, for battle, of foot soldiers, horses, charioteers and elephants. Then the tale of the troops by both parties. Then the dispatch by Prince Duryodhan of Uluka as envoy to the Pandavas on the day previous to the battle. Then the tale of charioteers of different classes. Then the story of Amba. These all have been described in the fifth Parva called Audiobook of the Bharata, abounding with incidents appertaining to war and peace. O ye ascetics, the great Vyasa hath composed 186 sections in this Parva. The number of slokas also composed in this by the great Rishi is 6,698. Then is recited the Bhishma Parva, replete with wonderful incidents. In this hath been narrated by Sanjay the formation of the region known as Jambu. Here hath been described the great depression of Yudhishthirasami, and also a fierce fight for 10 successive days. In this the high-souled Vasudeva, by reasons based on the philosophy of final release, drove away Arjuna's compunction springing from the latter's regard for his kindred, whom he was on the eve of slaying. In this the magnanimous Krishna, attentive to the welfare of Yudhishthira, seeing the loss inflicted on the Pandav army, descended swiftly from his chariot himself and ran, with dauntless breast, his driving whip in hand, to effect the death of Bhishma. In this, Krishna also smote with piercing words Arjuna, the bearer of the Gandiva and the foremost in battle among all wielders of weapons. In this, the foremost of bowmen, Arjuna, placing Shikandin before him and piercing Bhishma with his sharpest arrows felled him from his chariot. In this, Bhishma lay stretched on his bed of arrows. This extensive Parva is known as the sixth in the Bharata. In this have been composed 117 sections. The number of slokas is 5,884 as told by Vyasa conversant with the Vedas. Then is recited the wonderful Parva called Drona, full of incidents. First comes the installation in the command of the army of the great instructor in arms, Drona, then the vow made by that great master of weapons of seizing the wise Yudhishthira in battle to please Duryodhan, then the retreat of Arjuna from the field before the Sansaptakas, then the overthrow of Bhagdatta like to a second Indra in the field, with the elephant Supratika, by Arjuna, then the death of the hero Abhimanyu in his teens, alone and unsupported, at the hands of many Maharathas, including Jayadratha, then after the death of Abhimanyu, the destruction by Arjuna, in battle of 7 Akshohinis of troops and then of Jayadratha, then the entry, by Bhima of mighty arms and by that foremost of warrior in chariot, Satyaki, into the Kaurava ranks impenetrable even to the gods, in search of Arjuna in obedience to the orders of Yudhishthira, and the destruction of the remnant of the Sansaptakas. In the Drona Parva, is the death of Alambusha, of Sritayus, of Jalasanda, of Shomadeta, of Virata, of the great warrior in chariot Drupta, of Gatotkacha and others. In this Parva, Aswatthama, excited beyond measure at the fall of his father in battle, discharged the terrible weapon Narayana. Then the glory of Yudra in connection with the burning of the 3 cities. Then the arrival of Vyasa and recital by him of the glory of Krishna and Arjuna. This is the great 7th Parva of the Bharata, in which all the heroic chiefs and princes mentioned were sent to their account. The number of sections in this is 170. The number of slokas as composed in the Drona Parva by Rishi Vyasa, the son of Parasra and the possessor of true knowledge after much meditation, is 8,909. Then comes the most wonderful Parva called Kama. In this is narrated the appointment of the wise king of Madra as Kama's charioteer. Then the history of the fall of the Asura Tripura. Then the application to each other by Kama and Salya of harsh words on their setting out for the field. Then the story of the swan and the crow recited in insulting allusion. Then the death of Pandya at the hands of the high-souled Aswatthama. Then the death of Dandasena. Then that of Darda. Then Yudhishthira's imminent risk in single combat with Kama in the presence of all the warriors. Then the mutual wrath of Yudhishthira and Arjuna. Then Krishna's pacification of Arjuna. In this Parva, Bhima, in fulfillment of his vow, having ripped open Dasasana's breast in battle, drank the blood of his heart. Then Arjuna slew the great Kama in single combat. Readers of the Bharata call this the 8th Parva. The number of sections in this is 69 and the number of slokas is 4,964. Then hath been recited the wonderful Parva called Salya. After all the great warriors had been slain, the king of Madra became the leader of the Kaurava army. The encounters one after another, of charioteers, have been here described. Then comes the fall of the great Salya at the hands of Yudhishthira the just. Here also is the death of Sakuni in battle at the hands of Sahdeva. Upon only a small remnant of the troops remaining alive after the immense slaughter, Duryodhan went to the lake and creating for himself room within its waters lay stretched there for some time. Then is narrated the receipt of this intelligence by Bhima from the fowlers. Then is narrated how, moved by the insulting speeches of the intelligent Yudhishthira, Duryodhan, ever unable to bear affronts, came out of the waters. Then comes the encounter, with clubs, between Duryodhan and Bhima. Then the arrival, at the time of such encounter, of Balram. Then is described the sacredness of the Saraswati. Then the progress of the encounter with clubs. Then the fracture of Duryodhan's thighs in battle by Bhima with a terrific hurl of his make. These all have been described in the wonderful ninth Parva. In this the number of sections is 59 and the number of slokas composed by the great Vyasa, the spreader of the fame of the Kauravas, is 3220. Then shall I describe the Parva called Soptika of frightful incidents. On the Pandav as having gone away, the mighty charioteers, Kritavarman, Kripa, and the son of Drona, came to the field of battle in the evening and there saw King Duryodhan lying on the ground, his thighs broken, and himself covered with blood. Then the great charioteer, the son of Drona, of terrible wrath, vowed, without killing all the Panchalas including Drishtadayumna, and the Pandavas also with all their allies, I will not take off armor. Having spoken those words, the three warriors leaving Duryodhan's side entered the great forest just as the sun was setting. While sitting under a large banyan tree in the night, they saw an owl killing numerous crows one after another. At the sight of this, Aswatthama, his heart full of rage at the thought of his father's fate, resolved to slay the slumbering Panchalas. And wending to the gate of the camp, he saw there a Rakshasa of frightful visage, his head reaching to the very heavens, guarding the entrance. And seeing that Rakshasa obstructing all his weapons, the son of Drona speedily pacified by worship the three-eyed Rudra. And then accompanied by Kritavarman and Kripa he slew all the sons of Draupadi, all the Panchalas with Drishtadayumna and others, together with their relatives, slumbering unsuspectingly in the night. All perished on that fatal night except the 5 Pandavas and the great warrior Satyaki. Those escaped owing to Krishna's counsels. Then the charioteer of Drishtadayumna brought to the Pandavas intelligence of the slaughter of the slumbering Panchalas by the son of Drona. Then Draupadi, distressed at the death of her sons and brothers and father, sat before her lords resolved to kill herself by fasting. Then Bhima, of terrible prowess, moved by the words of Draupadi, resolved to please her, and speedily taking up his make followed in wrath the son of his preceptor in arms. The son of Drona, from fear of Bhimsena and impelled by the fates and moved also by anger, discharged a celestial weapon saying, "This is for the destruction of all the Pandavas." Then Krishna saying, "This shall not be," neutralized Aswatthama's speech. Then Arjuna neutralized that weapon by one of his own. Seeing the wicked Aswatthama's destructive intentions, Dwaipayana and Krishna pronounced curses on him which the latter returned. Pandava then deprived the mighty warrior in chariot Aswatthama of the jewel on his head, and became exceedingly glad, and, boastful of their success, made a present of it to the sorrowing Draupadi. This the 10th Parva, called Soptika, is recited. The great Vyasa hath composed this in 18 sections. The number of slokas also composed, in this, by the great reciter of sacred truths is 870. In this Parva has been put together by the great Rishi the 2 Parv as called Soptika and Ashika. After this hath been recited the highly pathetic Parva called Stri, Dhritarashtra of prophetic eye, afflicted at the death of his children, and moved by enmity towards Bhima, broke into pieces a statue of hard iron deftly placed before him by Krishna, as substitute of Bhima. Then Vidura, removing the distressed Dhritarashtra's affection for worldly things by reasons pointing to final release, consoled that wise monarch. Then hath been described the wending of the distressed Dhritarashtra accompanied by the ladies of his house to the field of battle of the Kauravas. Here follow the pathetic waitings of the wives of the slain heroes. Then the wrath of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra and their loss of consciousness. Then the Kshatriya ladies saw those heroes, their unreturning sons, brothers, and fathers, lying dead on the field. Then the pacification by Krishna of the wrath of Gandhari distressed at the death of her sons and grandsons. Then the cremation of the bodies of the deceased Rajas with due rites by that monarch, Yudhishthira, of great wisdom and the foremost also of all virtuous men. Then upon the presentation of water to the manes of the deceased princes having commenced, the story of Kunti's acknowledgement of Kama as her son born in secret. Those have all been described by the great Rishi Vyasa in the highly pathetic 11th Parva. Its perusal moveth every feeling heart with sorrow and even draweth tears from the eyes. The number of sections composed is 27. The number of slokas is 775. 12th in number cometh the Santi Parva, which increaseth the understanding and in which is related the despondency of Yudhishthira on his having slain his fathers, brothers, sons, maternal uncles and matrimonial relations. In this Parva is described how from his bed of arrows Bhishma expounded various systems of duties worth the study of kings desirous of knowledge. This Parva expounded the duties relative to emergencies, with full indications of time and reasons. By understanding these, a person attaineth to consummate knowledge. The mysteries also of final emancipation have been expatiated upon. This is the 12th Parva, the favorite of the wise. It consists of 339 sections, and contains 14,732 slokas. Next in order is the excellent Anusasana Parva. In it is described how Yudhishthira, the king of the Kurus, was reconciled to himself on hearing the exposition of duties by Bhishma, the son of Bhagirathi. This Parva treats of rules in detail and of dharma and artha, then the rules of charity and its merits, then the qualifications of dance, and the supreme rule regarding gifts. This Parva also describes the ceremonials of individual duty, the rules of conduct and the matchless merit of truth. This Parva showed the great merit of Brahmanas and kin, and unravelled the mysteries of duties in relation to time and place. These are embodied in the excellent Parva called Anusasana of varied incidents. In this hath been described the ascension of Bhishma to heaven. This is the 13th Parva which hath laid down accurately the various duties of men. The number of sections in this is 146. The number of slokas is 8,000. Then comes the 14th Parva Ashwamedhika. In this is the excellent story of Samvarta and Maruta. Then is described the discovery, by the Pandavas, of golden treasuries, and then the birth of Parikshit, who was revived by Krishna after having been burnt by the celestial weapon of Aswathaman. The battles of Arjuna the son of Pandu, while following the sacrificial horse let loose, with various princes who in wrath seized it. Then is shown the great risk of Arjuna in his encounter with Vabruvahana the son of Chitrangada, by Arjuna, the appointed daughter of the chief of Manipura. Then the story of the mongoose during the performance of the horse sacrifice. This is the most wonderful Parva called Ashwamedhika. The number of sections is 103. The number of slokas composed in this by Vyasa of true knowledge is 3,320. Then comes the 15th Parva called Asramvasika. In this, Dhritarashtra, abdicating the kingdom, and accompanied by Gandhari and Vidura, went to the woods. Seeing this, the virtuous Pritha also, ever engaged in cherishing her superiors, leaving the court of her sons, followed the old couple. In this is described the wonderful meeting through the kindness of Vyasa of the king, Dhritarashtra, with the spirits of his slain children, grandchildren, and other princes, returned from the other world. Then the monarch, abandoning his sorrows, acquired with his wife the highest fruit of his meritorious actions. In this Parva, Vidura, after having leaned on virtue all his life, attaineth to the most meritorious state. The learned son of Gavlagan, Sanjay, also of passions under full control, and the foremost of ministers, attained, in the Parva, to the blessed state. In this, Yudhishthira the just met Narada and heard from him about the extinction of the race of Vrishnis. This is the very wonderful Parva called Asramvasika. The number of sections in this is 42, and the number of slokas composed by Vyasa cognizant of truth is 1506. After this, comes the Moishala of painful incidents. In this, those lion-hearted heroes, of the race of Vrishni, with the scars of many a field on their bodies, oppressed with the curse of a Brahmana, while deprived of reason from drink, impelled by the fates, slew each other on the shores of the salt sea with the erka grass which, in their hands, became invested with the fatal attributes of the thunder. In this, both Balram and Keswa, Krishna, after causing the extermination of their race, their hour having come, themselves did not rise superior to the sway of all-destroying time. In this, Arjuna the foremost among men, going to Dwaravati, Dwarka, and seeing the city destitute of the Vrishnis, was much affected and became exceedingly sorry. Then after the funeral of his maternal uncle Vasudeva the foremost among the Yadus, Vrishnis, he saw the heroes of the Yadu race lying stretched in death on the spot where they had been drinking. He then caused the cremation of the bodies of the illustrious Krishna and Balram and of the principal members of the Vrishni race. Then as he was journeying from Dwarka with the women and children, the old and the decrepit, the remnants of the Yadu race, he was met on the way by a heavy calamity. He witnessed also the disgrace of his bow Gandiva and the unpropitiousness of his celestial weapons. Seeing all this, Arjuna became despondent and, pursuant to Vyasa's advice, went to Yudhishthira and solicited permission to adopt the sannyasa mode of life. This is the 16th Parva called Moishala. The number of sections is 8 and the number of slokas composed by Vyasa cognizant of truth is 320. The next is Mahaprasthanika, the 17th Parva. In this, those foremost among men, the Pandavas, abdicating their kingdom, went with Draupadi on their great journey called Mahaprasthana. In this, they came across Agni, having arrived on the shore of the Sea of Red Waters. In this, asked by Agni himself, Arjuna worshipped him duly, returned to him the excellent celestial bow called Gandiva. In this, leaving his brothers who dropped one after another and Draupadi also, Yudhishthira went on his journey without once looking back on them. This the 17th Parva is called Mahaprasthanika. The number of sections in this is 3. The number of slokas also composed by Vyasa cognizant of truth is 320. The Parva that comes after this, you must know, is the extraordinary one called Swarga of celestial incidents. Then seeing the celestial car come to take him, Yudhishthira, moved by kindness towards the dog that accompanied him, refused to ascend it without his companion. Observing the illustrious Yudhishthira's steady adherence to virtue, Dharma, the god of justice, abandoning his canine form, showed himself to the king. Then Yudhishthira, ascending to heaven, felt much pain. The celestial messenger showed him hell by an act of deception. Then Yudhishthira, the soul of justice, heard the heart-rending lamentations of his brothers abiding in that region under the discipline of Yam. Then Dharma and Indra showed Yudhishthira the region appointed for sinners. Then Yudhishthira, after leaving the human body by a plunge in the celestial Ganges, attained to that region which his acts merited, and began to live in joy, respected by Indra and all other gods. This is the 18th Parva as narrated by the illustrious Vyasa. The number of slokas composed, O ascetics, by the great Rishi in this is 209. The above are the contents of the 18 Parvas. In the appendix, Kila, are the Harivnasa and the Vavishya. The number of slokas contained in the Harivnasa is 12,000. These are the contents of the section called Parvasangraha. Soti continued, 18 Akshohinis of troops came together for battle. The encounter that ensued was terrible and lasted for 18 days. He who knows the 4 Vedas with all the Angas and Upanishads, but does not know this history, Bharata, cannot be regarded as wise. Vyasa, of immeasurable intelligence, has spoken of the Mahabharata as a treatise on Artha, on Dharma, and on Kama. Those who have listened to his history can never bear to listen to others, as, indeed, they who have listened to the sweet voice of the male kokila can never hear the dissonance of the crow's cawing. As the formation of the 3 worlds proceedeth from the 5 elements, so do the inspirations of all poets proceed from this excellent composition. O ye Brahman, as the 4 kinds of creatures, viviparous, oviparous, born of hot moisture and vegetables, are dependent on space for their existence, so the Puranas depend upon this history. As all the senses depend for their exercise upon the various modifications of the mind, so do all acts, ceremonials, and moral qualities depend upon this treatise. There is not a story current in the world but doth depend on this history, even as body upon the food it taketh. All poets cherish the Bharata even as servants desirous of preferment always attend upon masters of good lineage. Even as the blessed domestic asrama can never be surpassed by the 3 other asramas, modes of life, so no poets can surpass this poem. Ye ascetics, shake off all inaction. Let your hearts be fixed on virtue, for virtue is the one only friend of him that has gone to the other world. Even the most intelligent by cherishing wealth and wives can never make these their own, nor are these possessions lasting. The Bharata uttered by the lips of Dwaipayana is without a parallel, it is virtue itself and sacred. It destroyeth sin and produceth good. He that listeneth to it while it is being recited hath no need of a bath in the sacred waters of Pushkara. A Brahmana, whatever sins he may commit during the day through his senses, is freed from them all by reading the Bharata in the evening. Whatever sins he may commit also in the night by deeds, words, or mind, he is freed from them all by reading Bharata in the first twilight, morning. He that giveth 100 kin with horns mounted with gold to a Brahmana well posted up in the Vedas and all branches of learning, and he that daily listeneth to the sacred narrations of the Bharata, acquireth equal merit. As the wide ocean is easily passable by men having ships, so is this extensive history of great excellence and deep import with the help of this chapter called Parva Sangraha, Thus endeth the section called Parvasangraha of the Adiparva of the blessed Mahabharat. The Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa, Adiparva, Section 3, Poesya Parva, Soti said, Janamejaya, the son of Parikshit, was, with his brothers, attending his long sacrifice on the plains of Kurukshetra. His brothers were three, Shrutasena, Ugrasena, and Bhimsena. And as they were sitting at the sacrifice, they arrived at the spot, an offspring of Sarama, the celestial bitch. And belabored by the brothers of Janamejaya, he ran away to his mother, crying in pain. And his mother, seeing him crying exceedingly, asked him, Why criest thou so? Who hath beaten thee? And being thus questioned, he said unto his mother, I have been belabored by the brothers of Janamejaya. And his mother replied, Thou hast committed some fault for which hast thou been beaten. He answered, I have not committed any fault. I have not touched the sacrificial butter with my tongue, nor have I even cast a look upon it. His mother Sarama, hearing this and much distressed at the affliction of her son, went to the place where Janamejaya with his brothers was at his long extending sacrifice. And she addressed Janamejaya in anger, saying, This my son hath committed no fault, he hath not looked upon your sacrificial butter, nor hath he touched it with his tongue. Wherefore hath he been beaten? They said not a word in reply, whereupon she said, As ye have beaten my son who hath committed no fault, therefore shall evil come upon ye, when ye least expect it. Janamejaya, thus addressed by the celestial bitch, Sarama, became exceedingly alarmed and dejected. And after the sacrifice was concluded, returned to Hastinapura, and began to take great pains in searching for a Purohita who could, by procuring absolution for his sin, neutralize the effect of the curse. One day Janamejaya, the son of Parikshit, while a-hunting, observed in a particular part of his dominions a hermitage where dwelt a certain rishi of fame, Shrutasrava. He had a son, named Somasrava, deeply engaged in ascetic devotions. Being desirous of appointing that son of the rishi as his Purohita, Janamejaya, the son of Parikshit, saluted the rishi and addressed him, saying, O possessor of the 6 attributes, let this thy son be my Purohita. The rishi thus addressed, answered Janamejaya, O Janamejaya, this my son, deep in ascetic devotions, accomplished in the study of the Vedas, and endued with the full force of my asceticism, is born of the womb of a she-snake that had drunk my vital fluid. He is able to absolve thee from all offences save those committed against Mahadev. But he hath one particular habit, viz., he would grant to any Brahmana whatever might be begged of him. If thou canst put up with it, then thou take him. Janamejaya thus addressed replied to the rishi, It shall be even so. One, and accepting him for his Purohita, he returned to his capital, and he then addressed his brothers, saying, This is the person I have chosen for my spiritual master, whatsoever he may say must be complied with by you without examination. And his brothers did as they were directed. And giving these directions to his brothers, the king marched towards Takshashila and brought that country under his authority. About this time there was a rishi, Ayodhadhyaya by name. And Ayodhadhyaya had 3 disciples, Upamanyu, Aruni, and Veda. And the rishi bade one of these disciples, Aruni of Panchala, to go and stop up a breach in the watercourse of a certain field. And Aruni of Panchala, thus ordered by his preceptor, repaired to the spot, and having gone there he saw that he could not stop up the breach in the watercourse by ordinary means. And he was distressed because he could not do his preceptor's bidding. But at length he saw a way and said, "Well, I will do it in this way." He then went down into the breach and lay down himself there. And the water was thus confined. And some time after, the preceptor Ayodhya asked his other disciples where Aruni of Panchala was. And they answered, "Sir, he hath been sent by yourself, saying, Go, stop up the breach in the watercourse of the field." Thus reminded, Dharmya, addressing his pupils, said, "Then let us all go to the place where he is." And having arrived there, he shouted, "Ho Aruni of Panchala! Where art thou? Come hither, my child." And Aruni, hearing the voice of his preceptor, speedily came out of the watercourse and stood before his preceptor. And addressing the latter, Aruni said, "Here I am in the breach of the watercourse. Not having been able to devise any other means, I entered myself for the purpose of preventing the water running out. It is only upon hearing thy voice that, having left it and allowed the waters to escape, I have stood before thee. I salute thee, Master. Tell me what I have to do." The preceptor, thus addressed, replied, "Because in getting up from the ditch thou hast opened the watercourse, thenceforth shalt thou be called Uddalaka as a mark of thy preceptor's favor, and because my words have been obeyed by thee, thou shalt obtain good fortune. And all the Vedas shall shine in thee, and all the Dharmasastras also." And Aruni, thus addressed by his preceptor, went to the country after his heart. The name of another of Ayodhya's disciples was Upamanyu. And Dharmya appointed him, saying, "Go, my child, Upamanyu, look after the kin." And according to his preceptor's orders, he went to tend the kin. And having watched them all day, he returned in the evening to his preceptor's house, and standing before him he saluted him respectfully. And his preceptor, seeing him in good condition of body, asked him, "Upamanyu, my child, upon what dost thou support thyself? Thou art exceedingly plump." And he answered, "Sir, I support myself by begging." And his preceptor said, "What is obtained in alms should not be used by thee without offering it to me." And Upamanyu, thus told, went away. And having obtained alms, he offered the same to his preceptor. And his preceptor took from him even the whole. And Upamanyu, thus treated, went to attend the cattle. And having watched them all day, he returned in the evening to his preceptor's abode. And he stood before his preceptor and saluted him with respect. And his preceptor, perceiving that he still continued to be of good condition of body, said unto him, "Upamanyu, my child, I take from thee even the whole of what thou obtainest in alms, without leaving anything for thee. How then dost thou, at present, contrive to support thyself?" And Upamanyu said unto his preceptor, "Sir, having made over to you all that I obtain in alms, I go a begging a second time for supporting myself." And his preceptor then replied, "This is not the way in which thou shouldst obey the preceptor. By this thou art diminishing the support of others that live by begging. Truly, having supported thyself so, thou hast proved thyself covetous." And Upamanyu, having signified his assent to all that his preceptor said, went away to attend the cattle. And having watched them all day, he returned to his preceptor's house. And he stood before his preceptor and saluted him respectfully. And his preceptor, observing that he was still fat, said again unto him, "Upamanyu, my child, I take from thee all thou obtainest in alms, and thou dost not go a begging a second time, and yet art thou in healthy condition. How dost thou support thyself?" And Upamanyu, thus questioned, answered, "Sir, I now live upon the milk of these cows." And his preceptor thereupon told him, "It is not lawful for thee to appropriate the milk without having first obtained my consent." And Upamanyu, having assented to the justice of these observations, went away to tend the kin. And when he returned to his preceptor's abode, he stood before him and saluted him as usual. And his preceptor, seeing that he was still fat, said, "Upamanyu, my child, thou eatest no longer of alms, nor dost thou go a-begging a second time, not even drinkest of the milk, yet art thou fat. By what means dost thou contrive to live now?" And Upamanyu replied, "Sir, I now sip the froth that these calves throw out while sucking their mother's teats." And the preceptor said, "These generous calves, I suppose, out of compassion for thee, throw out large quantities of froth. Wouldst thou stand in the way of their full meals by acting as thou hast done? Know that it is unlawful for thee to drink the froth." And Upamanyu, having signified his assent to this, went as before to tend the cows. And restrained by his preceptor, he feedeth not on alms, nor hath he anything else to eat, he drinketh not of the milk, nor tasteth he of the froth. And Upamanyu, one day, oppressed by hunger, when in a forest, ate of the leaves of the arka, Asalpias gigantea. And his eyes being affected by the pungent, acrimonious, crude, and saline properties of the leaves which he had eaten, he became blind. And as he was crawling about, he fell into a pit. And upon his not returning that day, when the sun was sinking down behind the summit of the western mountains, the preceptor observed to his disciples that Upamanyu was not yet come. And they told him that he had gone out with the cattle. The preceptor then said, "Upamanyu, being restrained by me from the use of everything, is, of course, and therefore, doth not come home until it be late. Let us then go in search of him." And having said this, he went with his disciples into the forest and began to shout, saying, "Ho Upamanyu, where art thou?" And Upamanyu, hearing his preceptor's voice, answered in a loud tone, "Here I am at the bottom of a well." And his preceptor asked him how he happened to be there. And Upamanyu replied, "Having eaten of the leaves of the arka plant, I became blind, and so have I fallen into this well." And his preceptor thereupon told him, "Glorify the twin Aswins, the joint physicians of the gods, and they will restore thee thy sight." And Upamanyu, thus directed by his preceptor, began to glorify the twin Aswins, in the following words of the Rigveda: "Ye have existed before the creation. Ye first-born beings, ye are displayed in this wondrous universe of 5 elements. I desire to obtain you by the help of the knowledge derived from hearing, and of meditation, for ye are infinite. Ye are the course itself of nature, an intelligent soul that pervades that course. Ye are birds of beauteous feathers perched on the body that is like to a tree. Ye are without the 3 common attributes of every soul. Ye are incomparable. Ye, through your spirit in every created thing, pervade the universe. Ye are golden eagles. Ye are the essence into which all things disappear. Ye are free from error and know no deterioration. Ye are of beauteous beaks that would not unjustly strike and are victorious in every encounter. Ye certainly prevail over time. Having created the sun, ye weave the wondrous cloth of the year by means of the white thread of the day and the black thread of the night. And with the cloth so woven, ye have established 2 courses of action appertaining respectively to the Devas and the Pitris. The bird of life seized by time, which represents the strength of the infinite soul, ye set free for delivering her unto great happiness. They that are in deep ignorance, as long as they are under the delusions of their senses. Suppose you, who are independent of the attributes of matter, to be gifted with form. 360 cows represented by 360 days produce one calf between them, which is the year. That calf is the creator and destroyer of all. Seekers of truth following different routes, draw the milk of true knowledge with its help. Ye Aswins, ye are the creators of that calf. The year is but the nav of a wheel to which is attached 720 spokes representing as many days and nights. The circumference of this wheel represented by 12 months is without end. This wheel is full of delusions and knows no deterioration. It affects all creatures whether of this or of the other worlds. Ye Aswins, this wheel of time is set in motion by you. The wheel of time as represented by the year has a nav represented by the 6 seasons. The number of spokes attached to that nav is 12 as represented by the 12 signs of the zodiac. This wheel of time manifests the fruits of the acts of all things. The presiding deities of time abide in that wheel. Subject as I am to its distressful influence, ye Aswins, liberate me from that wheel of time. Ye Aswins, ye are this universe of 5 elements. Ye are the objects that are enjoyed in this and in the other world. Make me independent of the 5 elements. And though ye are the supreme Brahma, yet ye move over the earth in forms enjoying the delights that the senses afford. In the beginning, ye created the 10 points of the universe. Then have ye placed the sun and the sky above. The rishis, according to the course of the same sun, perform their sacrifices, and the gods and men, according to what hath been appointed for them, perform their sacrifices, also enjoying the fruits of those acts. Mixing the 3 colors, ye have produced all the objects of sight. It is from these objects that the universe hath sprung, whereon the gods and men are engaged in their respective occupations, and, indeed, all creatures endued with life. Ye Aswins, I adore you. I also adore the sky which is your handiwork. Ye are the ordainers of the fruits of all acts from which even the gods are not free. Ye are yourselves free from the fruits of your acts. Ye are the parents of all. As males and females it is ye that swallow the food which subsequently develops into the life-creating fluid and blood. The newborn infant sucks the teat of its mother. Indeed it is ye that take the shape of the infant. Ye Aswins, grant me my sight to protect my life. The twin Aswins, thus invoked, appeared and said, we are satisfied. Here is a cake for thee. Take and eat it. And Upamanyu thus addressed, replied, your words, O Aswins, have never proved untrue, but without first offering this cake to my preceptor I dare not take it. And the Aswins thereupon told him, formerly, thy preceptor had invoked us. We thereupon gave him a cake like this, and he took it without offering it to his master. Do thou do that which thy preceptor did. Thus addressed, Upamanyu again said unto them, O Aswins, I crave your pardon, without offering it to my preceptor I dare not apply this cake. The Aswins then said, O, we are pleased with this devotion of thine to thy preceptor. Thy master's teeth are of black iron. Thine shall be of gold. Thou shalt be restored to sight and shalt have good fortune. Thus spoken to by the Aswins he recovered his sight, and having gone to his preceptor's presence he saluted him and told him all. And his preceptor was well pleased with him and said unto him, thou shalt obtain prosperity even as the Aswins have said. All the Vedas shall shine in thee and all the Dharmasastras. And this was the trial of Upamanyu. Then Veda, the other disciple of Ayodhya, was called. His preceptor once addressed him, saying, Veda, my child, tarry some time in my house and serve thy preceptor. It shall be to thy profit. And Veda, having signified his assent, tarried long in the family of his preceptor, mindful of serving him. Like an ox under the burdens of his master, he bore heat and cold, hunger and thirst, at all times without a murmur. And it was not long before his preceptor was satisfied. And as a consequence of that satisfaction, Veda obtained good fortune and universal knowledge. And this was the trial of Veda. And Veda, having received permission from his preceptor, and leaving the latter's residence after the completion of his studies, entered the domestic mode of life. And while living in his own house, he got 3 pupils. And he never told them to perform any work or to obey implicitly his own behests, for having himself experienced much woe while abiding in the family of his preceptor, he liked not to treat them with severity. After a certain time, Janamejaya and Poishya, both of the order of Kshatriyas, arriving at his residence, appointed the Brahman, Veda, as their spiritual guide, Upadhyaya. And one day, while about to depart upon some business related to a sacrifice, he employed one of his disciples, Uttanka, to take charge of his household. Uttanka, said he, whatsoever should have to be done in my house, let it be done by thee without neglect. And having given these orders to Uttanka, he went on his journey. So Uttanka, always mindful of the injunction of his preceptor, took up his abode in the latter's house. And while Uttanka was residing there, the females of his preceptor's house, having assembled, addressed him and said, O Uttanka, thy mistress is in that season when connubial connection might be fruitful. The preceptor is absent, then stand thou in his place and do the needful. And Uttanka, thus addressed, said unto those women, It is not proper for me to do this at the bidding of women. I have not been enjoined by my preceptor to do aught that is improper. After a while, his preceptor returned from his journey. And his preceptor, having learned all that had happened, became well pleased and, addressing Uttanka, said, Uttanka, my child, what favor shall I bestow on thee? I have been served by thee duly, therefore hath our friendship for each other increased. I therefore grant thee leave to depart. Go thou, and let thy wishes be accomplished. Uttanka, thus addressed, replied, saying, Let me do something that you wish, for it hath been said, He who bestoweth instruction contrary to usage, and he who receiveth it contrary to usage, one of the two dieth, and enmity springeth up between the two. I, therefore, who have received thy leave to depart, am desirous of bringing thee some honorarium due to a preceptor. His master, upon hearing this, replied, Uttanka, my child, wait a while. Some time after, Uttanka again addressed his preceptor, saying, Command me to bring that for honorarium which you desire. And his preceptor then said, My dear Uttanka, thou hast often told me of your desire to bring something by way of acknowledgement for the instruction thou hast received. Go then in and ask thy mistress what thou art to bring. And bring thou that which she directs. And thus directed by his preceptor, Uttanka addressed his preceptress, saying, Madam, I have obtained my master's leave to go home, and I am desirous of bringing something agreeable to thee as honorarium for the instruction I have received, in order that I may not depart as his debtor. Therefore, please command me what I am to bring. Thus addressed, his preceptress replied, Go unto King Poishya and beg of him the pair of earrings worn by his queen, and bring them hither. The fourth day hence is a sacred day when I wish to appear before the Brahmanas, who may dine at my house, decked with these earrings. Then accomplish this, O Utanka. If thou shouldst succeed, good fortune shall attend thee, if not, what good canst thou expect? Utanka thus commanded, took his departure. And as he was passing along the road he saw a bull of extraordinary size and a man of uncommon stature mounted thereon. And that man addressed Utanka and said, Eat thou of the dung of this bull. Utanka, however, was unwilling to comply. The man said again, O Utanka, eat of it without scrutiny. Thy master ate of it before. And Utanka signified his assent and ate of the dung and drank of the urine of that bull, and rose respectfully, and washing his hands and mouth went to where King Portia was. On arriving at the palace, Utanka saw Portia seated on his throne. And approaching him Utanka saluted the monarch by pronouncing blessings and said, I am come as a petitioner to thee. And King Portia, having returned Utanka's salutations, said, Sir, what shall I do for thee? And Utanka said, One came to beg of thee a pair of earrings as a present to my preceptor. It behoveth thee to give me the earrings worn by the queen. King Portia replied, Go, Utanka, into the female apartments where the queen is and demand them of her. And Utanka went into the women's apartments. But as he could not discover the queen, he again addressed the king, saying, It is not proper that I should be treated by thee with deceit. Thy queen is not in the private apartments, for I could not find her. The king thus addressed, considered for a while and replied, Recollect, sir, with attention whether thou art not in a state of defilement in consequence of contact with the impurities of a repast. My queen is a chaste wife and cannot be seen by anyone who is impure owing to contact with the leavings of a repast. Nor doth she herself appear in sight of anyone who is defiled. Utanka, thus informed, reflected for a while and then said, Yes, it must be so. Having been in a hurry I performed my ablutions, after meal, in a standing posture. King Portia then said, Here is a transgression. Purification is not properly effected by one in a standing posture, not by one while he is going along. And Utanka having agreed to this, sat down with his face towards the east, and washed his face, hands, and feet thoroughly. And he then, without a noise, sipped thrice of water free from scum and froth, and not warm, and just sufficient to reach his stomach, and wiped his face twice. And he then touched with water the apertures of his organs, eyes, ears, etc. And having done all this, he once more entered the apartments of the women. And this time he saw the queen. And as the queen perceived him, she saluted him respectfully and said, Welcome, sir, command me what I have to do. And Utanka said unto her, It behoveth thee to give me those earrings of thine. I beg them as a present for my preceptor. And the queen having been highly pleased with Utanka's conduct and, considering that Utanka as an object of charity could not be passed over, took off her earrings and gave them to him. And she said, These earrings are very much sought after by Takshaka, the king of the serpents. Therefore shouldst thou carry them with the greatest care. And Utanka being told this, said unto the queen, Lady, be under no apprehension. Takshaka, chief of the serpents, is not able to overtake me. And having said this, and taking leave of the queen, he went back into the presence of Portia, and said, Portia, I am gratified. Then Portia said to Utanka, a fit object of charity can only be had at long intervals. Thou art a qualified guest, therefore do I desire to perform a Shraddha. Tarry thou a little. And Uttanka replied, Yes, I will tarry, and beg that the clean provisions that are ready may be soon brought in. And the king, having signified his assent, entertained Uttanka duly. And Uttanka, seeing that the food placed before him had hair in it, and also that it was cold, thought it unclean. And he said unto Portia, Thou givest me food that is unclean, therefore shalt thou lose thy sight. And Portia in answer said, And because dost thou impute uncleanliness to food that is clean, therefore shalt thou be without issue. And Uttanka thereupon rejoined, It behoveth thee not, after having offered me unclean food, to curse me in return. Satisfy thyself by ocular proof. And Portia, seeing the food alleged to be unclean, satisfied himself of its uncleanliness. And Portia, having ascertained that the food was truly unclean, being cold and mixed with hair, prepared as it was by a woman with unbraided hair, began to pacify the Rishi Uttanka, saying, Sir, the food placed before thee is cold, and doth contain hair, having been prepared without sufficient care. Therefore I pray thee pardon me. Let me not become blind. And Uttanka answered, What I say must come to pass. Having become blind, thou mayst, however, recover the sight before long. Grant that thy curse also doth not take effect on me. And Portia said unto him, One I am unable to revoke my curse. For my wrath even now hath not been appeased, but thou knowest not this. For a Brahmana's heart is soft as new churned butter, even though his words bear a sharp-edged razor. It is otherwise in respect of these with the Kshatriya. His words are soft as new churned butter, but his heart is like a sharp-edged tool. Such being the case, I am unable, because of the hardness of my heart, to neutralize my curse. Then go thou thy own way. To this Uttanka made answer, One showed thee the uncleanliness of the food offered to me, and I was even now pacified by thee. Besides, saidst thou at first that because I imputed uncleanliness to food that was clean I should be without issue. But the food truly unclean, thy curse cannot affect me. Of this I am sure. And Uttanka, having said this, departed with the earrings. On the road Uttanka perceived coming towards him a naked idle beggar, sometimes coming in view and sometimes disappearing. And Uttanka put the earrings on the ground and went for water. In the meantime the beggar came quickly to the spot and taking up the earrings ran away. And Uttanka, having completed his ablutions in water and purified himself, and having also reverently bowed down to the gods and his spiritual masters, pursued the chief with the utmost speed. And having with great difficulty overtaken him, he seized him by force. But at that instant the person ceased, quitting the form of a beggar and assuming his real form, viz., that of Takshaka, speedily entered a large hole open in the ground. And having got in, Takshaka proceeded to his own abode, the region of the serpents. Now, Uttanka, recollecting the words of the queen, pursued the serpent, and began to dig open the hole with a stick, but was unable to make much progress. And Indra, beholding his distress, sent his thunderbolt, Vajra, to his assistance. Then the thunderbolt entering that stick enlarged that hole. And Uttanka began to enter the hole after the thunderbolt. And having entered it, he beheld the region of the serpents, infinite in extent, filled with hundreds of palaces and elegant mansions with turrets and domes and gateways, abounding with wonderful places for various games and entertainments. And Uttanka then glorified the serpents by the following slokas: Ye serpents, subjects of King Airavata, splendid in battle and showering weapons in the field like lightning-charged clouds driven by the winds. Handsome and of various forms and decked with many-colored earrings, ye children of Ivaveta, ye shine like the sun in the firmament. On the northern banks of the Ganges are many habitations of serpents. There I constantly adore the great serpents. Who except Airavata would desire to move in the burning rays of the sun? When Dhritarashtra, Airavata's brother, goes out, 28,008 serpents follow him as his attendants. Ye who move near him and ye who stay at a distance from him, I adore all of you that have Airavata for your elder brother. I adore thee also, to obtain the earrings, O Takshaka, who formerly dwelt in Kurukshetra and the forest of Kandava. Takshaka and Ashwasena, ye are constant companions who dwell in Kurukshetra on the banks of the Ikshuti. I also adore the illustrious Shrutasena, the younger brother of Takshaka, who resided at the holy place called Mahadyumna with a view to obtaining the chiefship of the serpents. The Brahmana Rishi Utanka, having saluted the chief serpents in this manner, obtained not, however, the earrings, and he thereupon became very thoughtful. And when he saw that he obtained not the earrings even though he had adored the serpents, he then looked about him and beheld two women at a loom weaving a piece of cloth with a fine shuttle, and in the loom were black and white threads. And he likewise saw a wheel, with 12 spokes, turned by 6 boys. And he also saw a man with a handsome horse. And he began to address them the following mantras. This wheel, whose circumference is marked by 24 divisions representing as many lunar changes, is furnished with 300 spokes. It is set in continual motion by 6 boys, the seasons. These damsels representing universal nature are weaving without intermission a cloth with threads black and white, and thereby ushering into existence the manifold worlds and the beings that inhabit them. Thou wielder of the thunder, the protector of the universe, the slayer of Vritra and Namuchi, thou illustrious one who wearest the black cloth and displayest truth and untruth in the universe, thou who ownest for thy carrier the horse which was received from the depths of the ocean, and which is but another form of Agni, the god of fire, I bow to thee, thou supreme Lord, thou Lord of the 3 worlds, O Purandara. Then the man with the horse said unto Utanka, I am gratified by this thy adoration. What good shall I do to thee? And Utanka replied, even let the serpents be brought under my control. Then the man rejoined, blow into this horse. And Utanka blew into that horse. And from the horse thus blown into, there issued, from every aperture of his body, flames of fire with smoke by which the region of the Nagas was about to be consumed. And Takshaka, surprised beyond measure and terrified by the heat of the fire, hastily came out of his abode taking the earrings with him, and said unto Utanka, pray, sir, take back the earrings. And Utanka took them back. But Utanka, having recovered his earrings, thought, oh, this is that sacred day of my preceptress. I am at a distance. How can I, therefore, show my regard for her? And when Utanka was anxious about this, the man addressed him and said, ride this horse, Utanka, and he will in a moment carry thee to thy master's abode. And Utanka, having signified his assent, mounted the horse and presently reached his preceptor's house. And his preceptress that morning, after having bathed, was dressing her hair, sitting, thinking of uttering a curse on Utanka if he should not return within time. But, in the meantime, Utanka entered his preceptor's abode and paid his respects to his preceptress and presented her the earrings. Utanka, said she, thou hast arrived at the proper time at the proper place. Welcome, my child, thou art innocent, and therefore I do not curse thee. Good fortune is even before thee. Let thy wishes be crowned with success. Then Uttanka waited on his preceptor. And his preceptor said, thou art welcome. What hath occasioned thy long absence? And Uttanka replied to his preceptor, Sir, in the execution of this my business obstruction was offered by Takshaka, the king of serpents. Therefore I had to go to the region of the Nagas. There I saw two damsels sitting at a loom, weaving a fabric with black and white threads. Pray, what is that? There likewise I beheld a wheel with 12 spokes ceaselessly turned by 6 boys. What too doth that import? Who is also the man that I saw? And what the horse of extraordinary size likewise beheld by me? And when I was on the road I also saw a bull with a man mounted thereon, by whom I was endearingly accosted thus, Uttanka, eat of the dung of this bull, which was also eaten by thy master. So I ate of the dung of that bull according to his words. Who also is he? Therefore, enlightened by thee, I desire to hear all about them. And his preceptor thus addressed said unto him, the two damsels thou hast seen are Dhata and Vidhata, the black and white threads denote night and day, the wheel of 12 spokes turned by the 6 boys signified the year comprising 6 seasons. The man is Parjanya, the deity of rain, and the horse is Agni, the god of fire. The bull that thou hast seen on the road is Airavata, the king of elephants, the man mounted thereon is Indra, and the dung of the bull which was eaten by thee was Amrita. It was certainly for this last that thou hast not met with death in the region of the Nagas, and Indra, who is my friend, having been mercifully inclined, showed thee favor. It is for this that thou returnest safe, with the earrings about thee. Then, O thou amiable one, I give thee leave to depart. Thou shalt obtain good fortune. And Uttanka, having obtained his master's leave, moved by anger and resolved to avenge himself on Takshaka, proceeded towards Hastinapura. That excellent Brahmana soon reached Hastinapura. And Uttanka then waited upon King Janameja, who had some time before returned victorious from Takshashila. And Uttanka saw the victorious monarch surrounded on all sides by his ministers. And he pronounced benedictions on him in a proper form. And Uttanka addressed the monarch at the proper moment in speech of correct accent and melodious sounds, saying, O thou the best of monarchs! How is it that thou spendest thy time like a child when there is another matter that urgently demandeth thy attention? Soti said, the monarch Janameja, thus addressed, saluting that excellent Brahmana, replied unto him, in cherishing these my subjects I do discharge the duties of my noble tribe. Say, what is that business to be done by me, and which hath brought thee hither? The foremost of Brahmanas and distinguished beyond all for good deeds, thus addressed by the excellent monarch of large heart, replied unto him, O king! The business is thy own that demandeth thy attention, therefore do it, please, O thou king of kings! Thy father was deprived of life by Takshaka, therefore do thou avenge thy father's death on that vile serpent. The time hath come, I think, for the act of vengeance ordained by the fates. Go then avenge the death of thy magnanimous father, who, being bitten without cause by that vile serpent, was reduced to 5 elements, even like a tree stricken by thunder. The wicked Takshaka, vilest of the serpent race, intoxicated with power, committed an unnecessary act when he bit the king, that godlike father, the protector of the race of royal saints. Wicked in his deeds, he even caused Kasyapa, the prince of physicians, to run back when he was coming for the relief of thy father. It behoved thee to burn the wicked wretch in the blazing fire of a snake sacrifice, O king. Give instant orders for the sacrifice. It is thus thou canst avenge the death of thy father. And a very great favor shall have also been shown to me. For by that malignant wretch, O virtuous prince, my business also was, on one occasion, obstructed, while proceeding on account of my preceptor. Soti continued, the monarch, having heard these words, was enraged with Takshaka. By the speech of Uttanka was inflamed the prince, even as the sacrificial fire with clarified butter. Moved by grief also, in the presence of Uttanka, the prince asked his ministers the particulars of his father's journey to the regions of the blessed. And when he heard all about the circumstances of his father's death from the lips of Uttanka, he was overcome with pain and sorrow. And thus ended the section called Poesia of the Adiparva of the blessed Mahabharat. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.